We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stuff.
Am I going to get sued?
We got legal on this?
I like football season, all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We are live here on Monday morning, 7 a.m., reviewing all the Week 4 action. You ready to go, Sam?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, we got another week almost in the books. We talked a little bit about Thursday Night Football on the PFF NFL Daily on Friday, mosely about Tua Tagovailoa and
concussion controversy.
Yes. And look at you already in the chat telling people to hit the like button.
I know, right up top.
That's right. That should be like as soon as you get in, thumbs up.
Smash it.
Right? See if we can get to
the like button.
We need all million people to hit the like button. So we already talked a little bit about Thursday Night Football. We're going to go through all of Sunday's action, and then we got a pretty good Monday Night Football game tonight, Rams and 49ers. But let's start somewhat in order. Let's start in London. Was it in London?
Yeah.
Okay.
Spurs Stadium.
Of course.
Looks very fancy.
They're just over in England.
I haven't been there.
It does look, I mean, it looks cleaner than, what's it called?
Wembley?
Wembley.
Yeah, Wembley's kind of old and rickety at this stage.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I think the NFL is getting
more
away from like the high grass and, you know, the chopped up turf and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you want
it
more.
can suffer at times, the pitch at Wembley.
That's the pitch at Wembley, exactly. Thank you for, yeah, sure. All right, Minnesota Vikings 28, New Orleans Saints 25.
Yeah.
We had a Ginger Theory game.
Well, yeah, a test for the Ginger Theory, which was an early morning Andy Dalton performance.
Andy Dalton played pretty well.
Yeah,
overall.
so what does that do to the Ginger Theory?
So if you just looked at PFF grades,
yeah,
Andy Dalton versus Cooper Rush versus Carson Wentz, I think Dalton took the Ginger performance, basically, played the best out of the three. But Cooper Rush, only one of them could win. Cooper Rush took the QB win.
Okay.
Right? So only one of the three got a win, but only one of the three graded well. And it was Dalton.
There's also a possibility that
Carson Wentz got nothing.
Yeah. There's also a possibility that time zones, affects this.
Yeah.
And then as long as they're not, only one person can have it in any time zone or in any time slot for the games,
yeah.
So Dalton can have it for the 9 a.m. Wembley thing, or not Wembley, Spurs Stadium, London game.
Got to pass it on, though.
But once he's done, it's up for grabs again.
It's up for grabs. Cooper Rush may have grabbed it, even though he didn't play great. So anyway, we got hashtag Morning Kirk Cousins.
Morning Kirk.
Maybe a little bit of luck at the end, but he's got a game.
Quite a lot of luck.
He's got a lot of fourth quarter magic the last couple of weeks. Game-winning drives and the whole thing.
Yeah. At about 11:30 in the morning, man's in his zone.
Oh, yeah.
It's humming.
That is the perfect caffeine level, right? Like mid-morning, perfect caffeine level before you start crashing. I mean, maybe that's what Kirk really needs to look into is the caffeine timing in his life.
Somebody asked me at one point, I went hunting through the DMs in that magical folder where they get hidden that you don't pay attention to. And somebody was saying that I forget what the term for this is, but I assume that thing where any weird audio sound of people eating or whatever makes you freak out. And they're like, when you take a drink of your coffee, can you please be the hell away from the microphone, essentially, was the request.
Was that to you specifically?
It was to me specifically, but I assume it's applicable to everybody as opposed to my personal sounds of drinking a slug of coffee is offensive to them. I imagine yours would be as well.
That's where we...
I'm trying to accommodate, but it's not something that readily jumps to mind.
Well,
so,
Tyler needs to know that you're off camera when you're doing that.
I mean, the bigger thing is just to remember, get the hell away from the microphone for me.
Yeah,
but I'm
we
trying.
we don't have the cough button anymore. We don't have the cough button anymore. All right, so... what are your thoughts on this game? 28-25. Again, the Vikings, a couple comebacks here. Some key plays just before the half. Andy Dalton strip sacked by Dalvin Tomlinson. A couple decent performances by the Vikings. Unfortunately, also losing first-round rookie Lewis Seen on a special teams play.
Yeah.
What are your takeaways on this one?
Yeah, that sucked for Seen. He got at least a snap on defense, because I noticed him before on a regular defensive play, which he was struggling to get so far this season, and then just a freak injury on a special teams play. He's running down there with the gunner, kind of weird collision of bodies, and then just the way his leg lands.
One snap on defense he played.
One. That was all he got.
Yeah.
One, just a weird way that his leg caught in the turf, and bam, one of those leg fractures, and it was pretty obvious at the time they wouldn't replay the injury, which is usually a pretty good sign that it's not a good one. Just thought, what a sucky blow for him. Actually getting some defensive snaps, albeit one. Had struggled to make an impact so far in his rookie season, and that not only is the season done for him, which sucks itself, but, man, to have that happen thousands of miles away in another country, that's gotta suck.
Yeah.
I mean, just the logistics of, he's got to have the surgery in London and then a couple of days in the hospital or whatever, and then they got to cart him back on a plane with a wrecked leg. God, that's rough for him.
Yeah, not great there. We saw a good battle with Justin Jefferson, Marshawn Lattimore. Justin Jefferson, after 2 quiet games, he gets 10 catches for $147. Also, the 3-yard touchdown run. But we saw the Minnesota offense a little bit more efficient with him, and gets a nice little go ball behind Lattimore for 41 yards. Kirk Cousins, interesting game for him. 3 turnover-worthy plays, had a misread on an interception to Tyrann Mathieu, had a couple others that definitely could have been picked, but overall I thought the Vikings did a good job hitting the underneath stuff. There was some open, the Saints usually make life pretty difficult, I think, for opposing quarterbacks, but the Vikings, they schemed it up pretty well, and there was a lot of underneath stuff open, and again, you throw the 41-yarder on top of that too. That was one of the big plays in there for the Vikings.
Yeah, Lattimore is an interesting corner because he likes turning games into a physical one-on-one confrontation. And when he goes up against Mike Evans, that's good for him because he pisses off Mike Evans. He makes it into basically a fight, and he'll win that fight if that's the kind of matchup it is, usually. Justin Jefferson, I think, is a very different type of receiver to Mike Evans. And when you make Justin Jefferson mad, he's going to beat you in different ways, and ways that you're not that good at necessarily. So you could see very early in this game that there was tension, I guess, between Lattimore and Justin Jefferson. And then by the end of it, it's this isn't going that well for Lattimore. Jefferson's doing things to him that Mike Evans can't do. And it's not necessarily working in your advantage. The Vikings offense, so the couple of things that struck me about this game. One, there were a ton of plays where the Minnesota receivers were just letting down Kirk Cousins. Drops, fingertip plays that are just out of reach. So many missed drive extending plays by this Vikings offense. The other thing is that this offense, it's a completely different world when the offensive line is functioning versus when it's not. The first drive, Minnesota looked very good, calm, nothing rush, nothing out of control. And then they started to get pressure. And it's a completely different offense when they get pressure. It's like that Rams system for the last few years in Los Angeles. When the offensive line's good and it's giving them a platform to work from, it's great. It looks really imposing. It's very difficult to slow down or stop. And then as soon as the offensive line starts to creak, the whole thing starts to look like a different team. The Vikings look like that right now. And with an offensive line like theirs, that's sort of on a knife edge the entire time.
And this was a Saints team that wasn't rushing the passer all that well through a few weeks.
Yeah.
They weren't great yesterday, New Orleans, but they did get to Cousins a few times and did create some pressure.
Yeah, and you can just see it. It just doesn't look the same when they're vulnerable to that kind of pressure. And a ton of those, the Eagles game a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't necessarily the Cousins played bad or that the receivers weren't getting open. It was that the pass rush was just getting home. This one wasn't as bad as that, but you saw signs of the same thing.
A couple controversial calls at the end as well. Pass interference down the field on Adam Thielen. That was one of those passes. If Thielen doesn't get his route cut off, maybe it's a jump ball for him, but that was potentially an interception late in the fourth quarter. So the Vikings Cousins and the Vikings had a game-tying and a game-winning drive. This was on the game-tying drive where it could have been a drive ender with an interception. Instead, we've got a pass interference penalty down the field.
Yeah, so this was they effectively took the lead off the back of 2 penalties. So they're down 22-19. There's 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They go on this monster drive that chews up, the majority of the fourth quarter. And there's 3 penalties on that drive, all defensive. The first one, I think, was fine. It was a defensive holding call. I don't remember that, so I'm going to assume it was okay. The second 2, however, I believe were bullshit. And they both extended the drive and actually were the difference between crapping out, going nowhere, and, winning the game. So we've lost 4 minutes off the clock already. We've gone from 9.5 minutes left to 5.5 minutes left. It's 3rd and 10 from the Vikings' 49-yard line. So they spent 4 minutes of clock getting to midfield. It's 3rd down, 3rd and 10, incomplete pass, penalty, illegal use of hands. And you show the replay, it's like, I don't really see that. I don't see the hands illegal anywhere by Tyrann Mathieu. So anyway, that extends the drive. Now we're 1st and 10 from the New Orleans 46. We go 3 and out effectively again. Incomplete pass again. And this one is the long defensive pass interference. Cousins heaving it up into double coverage. There's a whole bunch of contact that's going both ways. Adam Thielen grabs hold of the guy's face mask, try and wrench him out of the way and prevent the interception. And somehow that's defensive pass interference. They had, I think it was Mike Pereira that was the rules official for this game, and he was like, it's a no call. Like, it can't be one or the other. It's either nothing or they've both committed a penalty. So I like a no call here. But anyway, 2 penalties keep that drive alive. Now Minnesota's set up 1st and goal from the 3, and that's the Justin Jefferson touchdown, and we take the lead off the back of that.
So the Vikings, they move to 3-1. Saints fall to 1-3. Andy Dalton was in because of Jameis Winston being hurt. They were also missing Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry. That opened the door for rookie Chris Olave to lead the team with 67 receiving yards, had the touchdown as well in there.
And Cameron Dantzler saved a big play to Chris Olave late in the game, like 2 minutes ago, that would have set the Saints back up in really good field position.
Saints are a tough one to figure out because, like I said, there have been times when that offense has looked really good, and you're like, man, when Olave, Michael Thomas, and Jarvis Landry are out there, push Marquez Callaway to that 4th option, it's like, all right, this is potentially a really good group. But Jameis Winston's been very inconsistent. Dalton kept battling back. He kept fighting back, but, the offense was inconsistent yesterday as well, but probably a tick better than they've been under Jameis. But Saints sitting here at 1-3 usually have they're just a tough team to peg right now because that defense can be hit or miss, and the offense has just been incredibly inconsistent through 4 games.
Yeah, I thought Olave looked very good again. Like that entire rookie receiving group, particularly the first rounders, they all look good. And I thought Cameron Dantzler, in addition to that one big play to break up for Olave late in the game, Dantzler had a fantastic game. Like he had, I think, 3 pass breakups over the course of the game. One was that one to Dantzler. One was kind of dig route to Marquez Callaway. I forget what the third one was, but he was all over the place and showed the kind of coverage skills that he has.
All right, we'll get into the next game, but first, one of our newest sponsors, our friends at Viore.
Yeah,
Viore. There's a special way to pronounce it. Is that your Viore shirt?
It is. It's one of them. I got 2, and this is one of the 2.
It looks comfortable. It looks great.
Very comfortable.
Right off the bat. Mm-hmm. So Viore, incredibly versatile, comfortable. Tell us about your experience getting your shirt. My stuff's on the way.
On the way. Well, it was very easy. They set us up, and away we went. I was looking. They've got a lot of sort of shorts and all those kinds of things, which is what I've been wearing for the last several months. But right at the time, it's getting cold as hell. I'm like, probably shouldn't go with shorts. Let's see what they have in the long sleeve world. So I got the hoodie that I was wearing the other day, the kind of waffle knit type of deal.
Yeah. And
then this thing. So I now have a couple of long sleeve things to wear at the early morning freezing temperature part of the year.
Yeah. So you can add to the long sleeve collection. You can add to your polo collection. Shorts, whatever it is, perfect for any workout or activity. It's comfortable. It's lightweight. easy to buy. Fiori's an investment in your happiness, Sam. For our listeners, we're offering 20% off your first purchase. That's right. Get 20% off. Get yourself some of the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet at Vuori.com. That's VUORI.com/showcode. VUORI.com/PFF.
/showcode?
Yeah, I wrote that out. That's what they told me. I did it. I went full Anchorman. Show code.
/showcode.
The show code is actually PFF.
Yeah.
Who wrote this copy?
That's beautiful.
Can we get the guy that wrote this copy, please?
What's the link again?
It's being edited right now on my Google Doc.
Yeah.
It's /PFF. Idiot, Steve. Idiot.
Somebody clip that. Put it on social media ASAP.
This is how you go viral for Vuori. VUORI.com/PFF. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on any U.S. orders over $75 plus free returns. Go to Vuori.com/PFF and discover the versatility of Vuori clothing. Saved it.
Oh, yeah.
All right, big time.
Nobody noticed.
Show code. I'm like, oh, show code. That's interesting. I wouldn't use show code. I would have used PFF. If I were them. Nailed it. How about them Bills? 23-20 over the Baltimore Ravens. The biggest comeback of Josh Allen's career. They had been 0-1 the last time. The last time they came back from a 17-point deficit.
Yeah.
Was Fitzmagic.
Yeah.
2011 against the New England Patriots. Against the Patriots. The Patriots never blow leads like that. Back in the heart of the Brady Belichick era. So that was the last time you saw that incredible comeback.
This was the game that Fitzmagic was talking about the other day. That Brady snubbed him at the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So he executes the comeback, goes to the midfield handshake, and Brady I think either just left or gave him a quick did the Thomas Tuchel thing or the Antonio Conte thing of gone, and he was like. Fitzmagic felt a little bit disrespected by that. He's like, you guys always win. You've won however many straight. You've got all the Super Bowls. I get one here. And you're just like, yeah, I'm gone. I think that was the game he was talking about. Anyway.
That probably was.
Yeah.
It probably was. So 23-20. The Ravens get up 20-3. It was the second week where the Bills were in this battle back and forth. Last week was against the Miami Dolphins. They ended up losing that game, but in this one, it just felt like two really good AFC teams just going back and forth. The controversial play in this one now, it's 20-20. The Ravens are going in. It's 4th and 2, I believe, right from the goal line, 4th and goal from the 2, and the Ravens go for it. There's about 4 minutes left in the game, and the Ravens, instead of kicking the go-ahead field goal, decide to go for it. And Lamar Jackson scrambles out. Now, when you're watching the play live, it's like, okay, it's 4th down. Lamar's got to throw it up. If nothing's open, Lamar has to throw it up. If you do see the wide angle, though, Lamar missed the go-ahead touchdown. I mean, he missed it. The same receiver that he threw to was open right off the bat. There wasn't really pressure in the middle of the pocket until Lamar scrambled backwards a little bit. So he chucks it up, intercepted in the end zone by Jordan Poyer.
Great interception, by the way.
Yeah, it was an excellent play. And, John Harbaugh was asked about the play after. And look, here's the thing that I love about John Harbaugh. He's going to at least explain himself analytically. He's going to explain why. Last year, the Ravens lost 2 games on go-ahead 2-point conversion attempts rather than taking the extra point. In this particular game, he was just explaining, if we don't get it, the Bills have to go 98 yards, presumably. Now, the interception changes that, obviously, puts them at the 20. But, that was part of the reasoning, right? Was basically saying in today's NFL, being up 3, that's not a huge lead. And you're against a Bills offense, you're probably going to give up 3. Like, you're likely to give up that 3. So we're going for the touchdown, right? We're going for, and then if we don't get it, they're going to get the long field. That gets skewed a little bit by the interception. What were your thoughts on that and just the end of the game here with the Ravens?
Well, the great thing about yesterday is that everybody was wrong. The fourth down decisions, whether you kick, whether you go for the touchdown, everybody, either side, screwed it up yesterday. As in the results were bad, whatever you did. There was this scenario where the Ravens go for the touchdown. They don't get it. I forget who else it was, but somebody else went for the opposite. They went for the field goal, and they missed the field goal. No matter what you did, you got it wrong yesterday. If you're only interested in outcomes, which is, a chunk of people still are, well, it was the right call because you made it, or it was the wrong call because you missed it. So that was fun. Just no matter what you did, you got it wrong yesterday. To me, the bad part of that play was missing the wide open guy for the touchdown. The decision to go for it or not, fine. Missing the open touchdown was bad. The play by Poyer was spectacular. He came from a mile away to get in front and make that play. That was open as well for a decent period of time. And
that was the pass that should have been a touchdown.
And then Poyer got in front of it, broke it up. Also, it was another one of those plays where he got in front to pick it off and then took a hit immediately, like a big contact on that play. To hold on to that ball through that contact for Poyer was pretty spectacular.
That was 18 yards of field position. That did matter. Right?
Yeah, and it was just a great play generally.
Right.
So that was really impressive. The other thing about this game, it was one of a number of games yesterday that were weather games, rain. So there was a lot of rain. It was a very wet game. The Bills were coughing up the ball early in the rain, got themselves in that big hole from which they were able to climb their way out. And this is another game. Okay, they didn't win one of these, but I've been impressed by the last couple of weeks by Buffalo, despite being very close and or losing a game. They dropped the game in Miami. They end up executing this comeback. But Miami and Baltimore are two very good teams in the AFC so far. And Buffalo have, despite a lot of injuries and a lot of stuff going against them, at the very minimum, been right in both those games and actually secured a win in this one.
Yeah, finding ways to win. So this was one where they didn't necessarily completely rely on Josh Allen to make all the plays as well, right? You've got, Devin Singletary has a big 16-yard reception to help set up the Bills. So when Lamar throws that interception and then the Ravens never see the ball again, right? So the Bills go down for about 4+ minutes. They drive down. There's a roughing the passer in there. There's a great throw to Dawson Knox in there. And then 2nd and 11, there's Josh Allen to Devin Singletary. There's a point where the Ravens tried to let the Bills score as well.
Well, most of the Ravens did.
Most of them.
Yeah.
Well, no, was it Singletary that just went down?
No, so he got tackled. I think it was Odafe Owe. 3 or 4 Ravens parted and let him through. And then Owe snagged him from the side and took him down.
It looked like Singletary knew better, though.
Maybe. He might have been going down anyway, but they did, definitely on replay, he's getting tackled. I don't know if he would have stopped himself anyway, and after the play, 2 or 3 Ravens are like, dude, we were letting him through. Don't.
Yeah.
There was a little conference after that play where they were like, no, we were letting him score.
So that was with 1:50 left. And then Josh Allen with a smart move, right? So it's 1:50 left. Singletary runs for 8. So now it's 2nd and 2 from the Baltimore 3. And what Josh Allen then did was he did a QB sneak where the Ravens were also trying to let him score. And Allen just goes down at the 1, essentially saying, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to score a touchdown, because that would have been a touchdown with about $1.40 left or so. That was the Ravens' only hope at that point. They were out of timeouts. So then the Bills just kneeled it out and kicked the game-winning field goal to win 23-20.
The Ravens are one of a couple of teams that are down to at least their 4th string left tackle at this point.
Crazy.
Daniel Faalele, the monstrous 380-pound rookie tackle, started at left tackle for them and got a lot of help. Justifiably so, because the idea of Daniel Faalele one-on-one against Von Miller is like the stuff of nightmares from a pass protection standpoint. He gave up a few pressures, but generally was okay. Given the assignment, I think that's reasonable. That's a decent outcome for them. But what the hell has happened to left tackles in the NFL this year?
On the last show, I was trying to write down all the teams that had left tackle issues. It ended up at about 10 teams, but the problem is all of those teams, many of them are
it's not
third
just
string.
one tackle. Yeah,
Yeah, they're third string or worse. It's
Baltimore
not
is
that
literally down to number 4.
Yeah.
They've lost,
the Jets are up to number 5.
5 if you count Becton as a left tackle, which he has been.
He was. He was their projected left tackle.
Yeah, but I think by the time the season rolled around, he would have been the right tackle. Anyway.
True. Right. Yeah, you're right.
Point being, they're down to at least 4.
Yeah.
5 if you want to count him. It's insane, the concentration of injuries at left tackle. So Faalele did okay, given the assignment there. Do you want to briefly mention that freaky miracle play that Lamar Jackson had?
Yeah.
Give a little. We're not going to do the explain the grade about Lamar Jackson this week, but explain what that play is for us.
Oh man, I mean that was
insane.
I mean, so you had Von Miller and it was Rousseau, right? Gregory Rousseau.
Yeah, I think so.
Lamar Jackson, especially on broadcast, you're watching the broadcast and it just looks like Lamar Jackson gets engulfed by 2 Bills, and you're just it's one of those your brain just says, oh, the play's over, and you're expecting him to be down. Before you know it, he spins out. It was so ridiculous that looking like he was going to be tackled that I also thought that he was just down. And then still just spun out for whatever reason. But no, he wasn't down. He slipped out of the 2 sacks, essentially. Then he rolls out and throws a prayer right to a Bills defender where, again, I forget who the receivers were.
Mark Andrews was the intended target.
So Mark Andrews climbs over the back of a Bills defender.
Does an amazing
just to
job.
break up the interception.
Well, so no, he's actually going... He does a really good job of trying to make a catch. He goes over the top of him, literally gets his hands to it and lifts it over him. But in the course of doing that, it pops up, and he can't quite secure the catch himself. And then it drops right into the hands. Was it Devin Duvernay?
I think it was Duvernay.
Drops right into Duvernay's hands for a catch.
So high EPA
yes.
on the play. I think, good job by Lamar breaking out of a sure sack.
Yep.
That wasn't his fault, right? That was just bad blocking that he should have been sacked. Bad job by throwing it to the defense.
Yeah.
Overall.
It was a little bit.
Up as a completion.
It reminded me a little bit of the helmet catch, where he's dead to rights. He's done. He somehow gets out of it, heaves something downfield. It's not quite as, the helmet catch was a genuine prayer into coverage that ended up actually being a really good pass. This one was right to a defender, relying on Mark Andrews mossing the guy. He almost gets it done, and then does just enough that it pops up right into Devin Duvernay's fingertips. So it's probably going to go down. Do you know what the grade is for that?
I think it'll end up becoming a turnover-worthy play.
Okay.
Because, the bottom line is he did throw it to the defense. That's a pass that gets picked.
Yeah,
more often than not, right? So, anyway, 23-20 for the Bills. I said this about the Bills at times last year. Not that they didn't rely. Josh Allen played way better than the stat line showed as well. This was the opposite. No, not that the stat line was great last week, but he threw for 400 yards last week. But he had all these turnover-worthy plays and all this stuff. They were kind of hidden. Allen ends up under 6 yards per attempt again, only 213 yards. He was an animal once again as on the ground. 11 carries for 70 yards, and
he's also just such a cheat code in third and fourth and short.
Yeah,
there's a play where they had him rolling out, they took it away, the sort of one option that you get left with there, and he just went all right, and just picked it up. Anyway, just busted his way through a tackle. Made a guy miss in the open field. It's so hard to stop him on third and fourth and short because he's got the complete skill set in terms of everything he can hurt you with on a given play. It's so hard to defend everything.
And you also had we have 5 drops at the moment right now. So Allen, you talked about the weather game and everything. He did make a lot. He had a lot of passes that should have moved the chains that did get dropped.
Yeah, and some of that. So this is where having an absolute laser beam for an arm can work against you. This was a glimpse of what football was like back before they invented sticky SeaTac gloves. You know what I mean? The rain essentially invalidates those things. I don't understand quite why, but technology hasn't cracked something that'll function in wet weather yet in terms of sticky gloves. So the advantage that those give people every other day of the week disappears. So what you're seeing is this is what football in the 1950s looked like in terms of people's ability to catch a football and keep hold of a football with fumbles and all those kinds of things. And I have to say, it's not as good. you can complain all you want about whether it's an artificial advantage or not, but it's better when people can keep hold of the football, generally.
Has anybody developed any wet weather gloves? Need some wet weather gloves?
Many have developed them, but they all suck.
Yeah.
This is like, so a while ago, I think Nike had these gloves that looked like a kind of tire tread pattern. Just, it seemed like it should work, the same logic as tires in your car. The water goes into the grooves and it didn't work. They sucked. The SeaTac things just don't work as well in the wet. I don't know. For some reason, we haven't quite mastered that kind of technology yet. But wet weather games are a glimpse back into the past in terms of ball security.
Bills move to 3-1. Ravens fall to 2-2. Everybody in the league is 3-1 or 2-2.
Except the Eagles.
Except the Eagles. Undefeated. Dallas Cowboys 25. Washington Commanders 10. This was the Ginger Bowl. As we said, Andy Dalton stole the Ginger grade. Yeah. And Cooper Rush gets the Ginger win.
The Ginger win.
Yes. Carson Wentz gets nothing.
No.
Another game where the Commanders' offense just does not look good. And Trayvon Diggs balling out for the Cowboys. Has that interception just before the half. Couple other pass breakups. Looking athletic at the catch point, making a ton of plays. And maybe my prediction about Trayvon Diggs having a better grade with fewer interceptions is moving in the right direction after this one.
Yeah, although if he has this game every week, he'll have more interceptions.
He'll have more interceptions. Overall, the Commanders, they did slow Micah Parsons at least.
Yeah.
From generating pressure. And Carson Wentz only sacked twice in this one, but still not enough. 4 yards per attempt for Wentz in this passing attack here.
Yeah, Diggs was thrown at 5 times, and he caught one of those. He broke up 2 of them and allowed 1 catch for 6 yards. Like, this was as good a game as you're going to find from Trayvon Diggs. And for some reason, so one of the passes that was thrown his way made sense to throw. You know what I mean? He kind of lost out at the release and in the route. He had a lot of ground to make up, and he made up the ground. But the target made sense. The interception made no sense to attempt ever. He's in off coverage on a go route, on a fade, and they just heave it up, and he ends up being in a better position than Jahan Dotson to make a play on the ball in the first place. But almost immediately, he's the intended receiver for that pass. And Diggs has got size, he's got length, and he's got ball skills. Why would you give him that opportunity ever? That's just a terrible decision to put the ball in the air. There was another one as well where it didn't make a ton of sense to target him. That's by the by. That's a Carson Wentz problem. But, yeah, this was as good a game as you're going to see from Trayvon Diggs and the kind of game that he is capable of. Nobody has ever doubted his capacity to have a game like this. It's just that we didn't see them every week.
If you're asking about Cooper Rush and why, the stat line does look great for him, over 8 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He had 2 negated interceptions in there as well. They weren't negated necessarily because of the penalty, right? Or they weren't interceptions because of the penalty. They were bad decisions, and ones that he got away with.
The penalty was independent of the bad play from the quarterback.
There you go. Perfect. Another big, 45-yarder to Noah Brown on the deep post. Rush did make some big throws, and this makes the Cowboys intriguing, man. It's not like their offense was incredible or anything like that, but you do have CeeDee Lamb the last couple weeks creating some big plays. Noah Brown, as we've said, has broken out a little bit. Michael Gallup makes his return, finds the end zone. Not that they've replaced Amari Cooper, but if Noah Brown ends up becoming the guy that we were saying, right? They need that third option. This could be a little better for Dallas once Dak gets back. I know Cooper Rush is undefeated and all that, but Dallas, tough defense and offense maybe finding their way here in recent weeks.
Yeah,
they couldn't get the run game going at all, though.
I mean, look, the big thing for Dallas has been, can we get through the period of no Dak Prescott and still be alive?
Yes, they're 3-1.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. We thought they'd be dead and buried, particularly with the Eagles being the only undefeated team in the NFL. If you had said that when Dak Prescott went down, hey, the Eagles aren't going to lose while you have Dak Prescott out, and you have these games with Cooper Rush at quarterback. Dallas fans, we were thinking, they're done. Their season's already gone. Forget it. Game over. That's not the case. At the very minimum, they are going to be in contention for a wild card spot at the point Dak Prescott comes back. And they're not going to be out of sight, the Eagles. They're still going to be alive within the division. For Dallas, that is a huge win. Now, you've still got to navigate Prescott getting back. Is he coming back too early? Are you going to see a game like Russell Wilson when he first came back from a hand injury last year where he just looked awful? There's still all that to get through. But so far, Cooper Rush has dramatically exceeded expectations in terms of being able to steer this ship and not run it into an iceberg.
I might say this a bunch throughout the next couple weeks. I feel like the NFL has done a great job of having the good teams, like some elite matchups early on and some matchups of the teams with perceived bottom 10 rosters, we'll say, right? Like your Seahawks Falcons matchups, and we'll talk about Seahawks Lions here in a minute. I think because of that, you have a bunch of teams at 2-2, right? You have a whole bunch of teams at 2-2, and even if you're 1-3, there's a lot of 1-3 teams as well, but there's only one undefeated team. So it does feel like early in the season they did a good job of saying, well, the good teams are going to knock each other off and beat each other up a little bit. The bad teams are somebody's got to win those games, and everybody's going to feel pretty good. Like everybody's going to feel like a contender halfway through the season. I think the NFL has scheduled that extremely well. I think that also makes it difficult on our end to sort through priors, to sort through, what did we think about these teams versus the win-loss column and what they're doing right now. So we'll talk more about that as we go here. But anything else on this game? Commanders, they're one of the 1-3 teams, and they've lost 3 straight now after they beat the Jaguars in week 1. And the last couple weeks, they're just not creating the same big plays down the field at all that we saw in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, so the Carson Wentz thing, okay, last week they were under a ton of pressure. He just didn't have a platform to function. This week he had a better platform and still didn't get anything done. The idea of let's lean into the variance, let's go on the Wentz roller coaster ride. Okay, fine, but where's the high? Like he averaged 3.9 yards per pass attempt in this game. There was one big time throw. That's not going to cut it. Like you need more from Carson Wentz in a game like this, and it wasn't there. Now, in his defense, all the ginger talent was gone. Like, what was he supposed to do?
Yeah. I mean, he could have salvaged the win at least. But Cooper Rush had it on the other side.
Now, I guess you can make the argument that it's on him to steal the ginger talent, but he wasn't able to do it, so he lost.
No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick'em contests versus other people for the shot at winning $250,000 plus in cash. Download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot to win big money every single day. You can also test your skills versus the house and 20 times your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5 player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league, including the NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. I do love this idea. No House Advantage. You can sign up now with the promo code PFFNFL. PFFNFL. That's a pretty good promo code right there.
Yeah, well, it's better than slash.
That's our show code.
Show code.
PFFNFL at nohouseadvantage.com. So go to nohouseadvantage.com, or you can download the app on the app stores to get a first deposit match up to $25. Make sure to check out No House Advantage today and experience daily fantasy sports redefined, because it's not just how you play, but also where you play. Check it out. No House Advantage. Not like us when we take our bets. Complete house advantage from us when we took listener bets. All right, Seattle 48, Detroit Lions 45. Again, one of my examples here. Seattle moves to 2-2. They had been an interesting offense to this point. They had not put up a ton of points, and then they just dominate here. Almost unstoppable. Seattle's offense. Detroit continues to put up a ridiculous amount of points, 45, but the defense, man, they're just falling apart. They're just falling apart in Detroit. But Jared Goff and Geno Smith went head-to-head in this one. And, Goff threw a pick 6 in there to Tariq Woolen. But other than that, he played really well. But Geno was the story, man. Probably best quarterback this entire week.
Yeah, again, Geno looking really good. Yeah, NFL Research had a tweet that the Lions have averaged 35 points per game and allowed 35-point-something points per game this season. The 281 combined points scored and points allowed are the most by any team in the first 4 games of a season in NFL history. Effectively, the Lions are objectively the most exciting team through 4 weeks that the league has ever seen.
Yeah,
as measured by simple points on the board.
It's pretty clear.
They don't go away. Like you can have the game won, the score astronomical. They've given up a ton of yards and points, and they're still going to keep coming. This is what happened with the Eagles. Remember, right at the start, the Eagles were long out of sight. They had that game dead and buried, and the Lions just kept hammering away, just kept coming back. The Dan Campbells, the fighting Dan Campbells with the kneecap biting. They're going to keep chewing.
And they also let the Vikings in.
Yeah.
Last week.
And they did this week, missing some players. Like they just keep on going. They are an interesting team to keep an eye on because the game is never done.
We did have a listener ask us to revisit the Jared Goff question. I think I forget who it was, but he was asking us yesterday, should we revisit our preseason question about Jared Goff and the Lions? I think he was essentially pushing like, hey, Jared Goff's a good long-term answer if the offense is a little bit better, if the supporting cast is better, if the play calling is better, which it has been. I mean, it's been incredible in Detroit. They're creating a lot of offense. I still don't know that that's like, hey, Jared Goff's the guy that you want to build around, because even though the offense is cooking right now, is it because of Jared Goff? I mean, he was very good yesterday, again, outside of that one a couple bad throws. But is it because of Jared Goff, or is it because the Lions are doing such a good job scheming playmakers into open space? You know, T.J. Hawkinson goes off yesterday. The development of Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have Jamal Williams all of a sudden, statistically looking like one of the best running backs in the NFL. This is a full team effort in Detroit. Jared Goff is at the helm. He's playing all right, but actually makes you more intrigued for looking at, if you upgrade Goff, what can you do? Not that you're going to score 40 points a game, but they're humming right now offensively in Detroit.
Yeah.
Just the defense is an issue.
I don't think anything we've seen over the first few weeks should suggest that Jared Goff has a different long-term future to the one we expected, which is like he's not a completely incapable quarterback. We already knew that. If you surround him with a good system, we saw that with the Rams, he can be a borderline top 10 kind of quarterback at the absolute apex. And that's good enough to get a team to the Super Bowl. Maybe not good enough to win it, but whatever. We already knew that about Jared Goff. That's not new information. You know what I mean? Like if the environment is great, if the players around him are good, if the scheme is fantastic, Jared Goff can function as a top 12 type of quarterback and take a team or be on a team that goes to a Super Bowl. The question is, what happens if things are slightly worse than that, or can he be the guy that takes a team to the Super Bowl rather than acting as a passenger? And I think that is still to be determined. Like if the Lions offense is putting up a ton of points, they're doing well, but Jared Goff is not exactly the driving force behind all this.
So Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator for the Lions, under heat now. There was a point where he was looking like one of the best young defensive coordinators. Now the defense falling apart on that side. You have Jeffrey Okudah, former first-round cornerback, giving up 124 yards on 5 catches yesterday, and he's in the middle of his best season right now. Okudah. And you just have Geno Smith, man, once again balling out. So Geno Smith, the way I had described him as grading well these last few weeks, it was essentially mistake-free football. Not mistake-free, but he did have a bunch of turnover-worthy plays, but he's not missing a ton of throws. So last week against Atlanta, Geno put the ball in harm's way a few times, but he's on pace right now, or he's got like the best completion percentage in history through 4 games. It was this short passing attack where he just kept, pretty much not missing, right, other than a couple misreads of coverage. This game, though, he's throwing the ball down the field, driving the ball down the field. DK Metcalf goes off once again and then has to go to the locker room.
Carted to the locker room.
Carted.
To take a dump.
Apparently it's a long ride.
Yeah, sure.
It's a long ride.
Well,
fantasy owners like, oh, no, losing DK. It's like, no.
I mean, it's got to be better.
He said something like, I had a bellyache.
Yeah. He also tweeted after that I forget what his term was, but like the pinch walk wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
So it's better to do it that way than the Lamar thing of having to waddle your way to the locker room quickly.
Yeah.
That
is that when I told my story? I told the food poisoning story last year?
I don't know.
It's ugly. When you've got to go from one side of the field to the other, to we call it a clubhouse, or to the locker room.
Yeah.
When you have to do that, It's not good.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
So take a cart.
At any level, there's typically quite a long way between the place you're playing and the nearest area to relieve oneself of an acute dump, you know?
Yeah.
And it's got to be better to get from A to B on a cart than it is to try and waddle your way there needing the dump.
Well, the Seahawks dumped on the Lions defense here.
Wow. You can manage, but you can't manage, /show code.
Nope.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it.
Well done.
DK had 149 yards on 7 catches, had a 54-yarder in there. Tyler Lockett had 91 yards as well. I don't know what to make of Seattle still, except those two guys can still play.
Yeah.
Geno Smith was throwing the ball down the field and still completing a high level of his passes, right?
This offense looked good.
Yes.
So Geno played out of his mind. The two receivers are good. Rashad Penny is still looking like last year's Rashad Penny, giving Seattle actually quite a collection of offensive playmakers and an offense that looks more capable. Like the system looks more defined and sensible than it did when Russell Wilson was the quarterback. Now, look, Russell Wilson had his best game as a Denver Bronco yesterday. So, at the point where this was happening, the Broncos hadn't kicked off yet. And you're like, okay, at the very minimum, it doesn't look good that all of a sudden the Shane Waldron offense looks great with Geno at the helm and the Denver offense looks lost with Russell Wilson at the helm. Like, whatever 2+2 conclusion you want to make, it at least looks bad as things currently stand. Now, then Russell Wilson went out and had his best game, so, it sort of tempered that a little bit. But, I mean, it does seem that that Geno, at the very minimum, looks to be quite a good fit for this system and is helping the system do its job, of functioning as an NFL offense.
Yeah, so you mentioned Rashad Penny, 2 long runs in there, a couple touchdowns, 17 carries for 151. That's 8.9 yards per carry. Over the last 2 seasons now, Rashad Penny is averaging 6 yards per carry. That's like college stuff.
Yeah.
6 yards per carry. Rashad Penny finally breaking out into the player that you thought he would be coming out of the draft in 2018. I mean, yeah. So this is where I don't know what to do with this stuff. The Seahawks are 2-2. They played Denver, 49ers, 2 teams that were supposed to be pretty good. Played the Falcons and played the Lions the last 2 weeks. The Falcons and the Lions, the expectations were a little bit lower again. So they're 2-2. The Lions are 1-3. A little disappointing start for them because they've been in all of these games. But the Seahawks are sitting here at 2-2, getting pretty good quarterback play. Again, very good quarterback play. Explosive playmakers with DK, Lockett, and Rashad Penny. I still don't really trust Seattle's defense. Now, Tariq Woolen he was a 5th-round corner. He was like the Trayvon Walker equivalent at cornerback at the Combine. One of the most incredible cornerback workouts we've ever seen. I thought Woolen's workout was going to put him in the 2nd round, and the Seahawks get him in the 5th. He looks like, I could see him developing 2 or 3 years down the line. He's not perfect, but, man, he looks good. And, you see the closing speed that he had on the Goff interception, takes it to the house. Seattle's defense is still a massive, massive work in progress. But this offense is going to keep them in games.
Yeah, it is. The offense is genuinely good. So think of the last few years, and it's been there's a lot wrong with this Seattle team, but Russell Wilson and those playmakers are good enough to drag this team to the playoffs pretty much every year. You're like, well, that's immediately gone the second Russell Wilson is out of the door. Now, if Geno keeps playing like this, it isn't. All of a sudden, that's exactly back on the table. Now, it's not just Geno, but the combination of Geno plus the offense, plus those receivers, plus Rashad Penny, that's enough. Like, okay, the defense might stink, but the offense playing like that means they are still, they're still alive as a decent team.
We get people in the chat saying the Seahawks picked up extra 1st-round picks, upgraded at quarterback. That's a steal.
Yeah, that's...
We're still in small sample size territory here, right?
Yeah,
With
look, that's like the people. We're 4 weeks into this thing, and what was occurring to me during the games is how quickly, in particular, the week 3 to week 4 jump is in terms of changing narratives of where teams are. Like the Bengals are 500 all of a sudden, Going from 2 weeks in, it's like, I told you Cincinnati wasn't going to make the playoffs.
The Jaguars were the upstart.
2 weeks later,
locked to win the AFC South.
Right. 2 weeks later, it's like, actually, Cincinnati's 500. They play Baltimore next. If they win that, they're like back in charge of the division.
This is what I'm saying. It matters who you play.
Of course.
Like, you're 4 weeks in, and if you've played two of the worst teams in the league, or if you've played two of the best teams in the league, it's going to change your record.
The Giants are 3-1, and nobody outside of television broadcast thinks they're good.
Well, the powerhouse 3-1 Giants are facing the powerhouse 3-1 Packers next week across the pond.
That might give you a better indication of where the Giants are.
Just saying, we're going to start. It's going to be separation week next week.
Anyway,
in the NFL.
So I was going to say, it's like the people saying that Jacoby Brissett is better than Deshaun Watson. It's like, okay, let's tap the brakes now. Jacoby's been fine. He's been good for a couple of games. He's been fine. Outside of that, let's settle down a little bit on where Jacoby actually is.
So credit to the Seahawks, credit to Geno Smith, balling out, and just really, this is his best game. He was already playing well. I am fascinated to see him keep it up. Greg Rosenthal, he's been a Geno supporter through the years. So Greg is good for Greg.
Greg gets a tremendous amount of airtime on this show. You give Greg a shout out every couple of weeks.
I like to give shout outs to our listeners. Our listeners deserve to get shout outs. If we're going to do it for emails and stuff, a dedicated listener like Greg Rosenthal from around the NFL, got to give him a shout out as well. Tennessee Titans 24, Indianapolis Colts 17. This one looked like a beatdown early on. Titans were up 24-3. The Colts crept back into it, but Tennessee Titans shut the door in the fourth quarter. Man, I don't know what to make of the Colts. Colts were coming off that big win against the Kansas City Chiefs, which, by the way, as we mentioned last week, I think was way more about the Chiefs losing it than the Colts winning it.
Yeah.
The Colts are dangerously close to being 0-3-1. Instead, they're 1-2-1. And the Titans move up to 2-2, tied for the lead in the AFC South with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Also, you look at just how close the Colts are to being completely winless, blanked, 0-4. They're not far away from being the worst team in the NFL through 4 weeks. And this was remember on the preview show, it's like, okay, both these teams have been disappointing through the first few weeks of the season, but I'm way more concerned about the Colts than I am the Titans. This game showed why. This to me played out exactly as it should have, which is Tennessee looked like a much more capable, dangerous team. And then, okay, the Colts made it close in the second half, but they were 14 up, Tennessee, at halftime. No, the Colts were the only team that scored in the second half, and then it's 7 points closer. But the Colts might be in real trouble.
The most Tennessee Titans thing about this game, last year we talked about Titans getting incredible performances from everyone, right? Dane Cruikshank was locking down Travis Kelce in their win against the Chiefs last year. In this particular game, you have Joe Schobert, who has been a journeyman, bouncing around teams here just in the last calendar year. Joe Schobert forces a Jonathan Taylor fumble in the fourth quarter as one of the huge plays here. And you have Denico Autry, who whoops Quentin Nelson for a strip sack early in the game. He comes back with the huge sack in the fourth quarter as well. And, isn't that just like the Vrabel Titans? You look at the name talent, as much as they'd be so much better if they had A.J. Brown. I'm just going to say they would be that much better if they had A.J. Brown. But the Titans have these games where they win, where the Joe Schoberts of the world, waiver wire pickups are making plays. And, I want to give credit to the Titans and Vrabel and, essentially the middle to bottom end of their roster stepping up when they need them.
Yeah, I think the Titans are still alive in terms of being a decent team this season. You're right, they would be better if A.J. Brown was in there. I still think they have a shot of patching it together and still having that kind of impact even without him. Derrick Henry showed that he can still be King Henry. He had a good game relative to what he's been doing so far this season. Looked a lot more like his old self than we've seen for a while. He had 100+ yards. He had a ton of those yards came after contact, busted a few tackles along the way. This looked a lot more like the Derrick Henry we've come to know and expect. Traylon Burks going down is definitely a blow. He was starting to become a bigger factor in that offense. Robert Woods finally gets his touchdown.
Bad coverage bust by the Colts on that.
He was open for like the entire play.
That was
just
bad.
a case of how long it took Tannehill to find him.
It looked like the Colts should have had 2 defenders between. I mean, it looked like they were playing with 9 guys on the field. I didn't check. Maybe they were. It was a bad coverage bust. Sorry. Carry on.
No, that was the end.
So that was the Tannehill's second touchdown. Was a sweet little sidearm, around traffic. Tannehill doesn't usually pull out those.
He's
cool
much more
angles.
by the numbers type pass.
Yeah, I mean he played well again. Again, the Titans bouncing back, man. You said coming in, who did we take? We both took Tennessee here. Because they were getting dogs. 3.5. They were underdogs there. They get up 24-3. Looks like they could blow it, but they cracked down at the end.
This was the line last week that made the least sense to me. I could not, for the life of me, even given the location, fathom how the Colts are favored.
Matt Ryan, I don't know what the numbers are not finalized yet. It might be off by 1 or 2 as plays get reviewed here. Through 4 games, we have Matt Ryan with 1 big time throw in 10 turnover-worthy plays.
Yeah.
A few of which are sacks. I mean, fumbles, right? It's not just passes into coverage.
He's been not good.
That is rough. I mean, the Colts thought they were getting, at worst, a better game manager than they had last year, right? We talked a lot about how they tried to make Carson Wentz into a game manager, and he did a decent job of taking care of the ball outside of the torrential, what was that in San Francisco last year?
Oh,
the snow squall storm thinger.
Yeah. It had some ridiculous name. I forget what it was called. Something like I don't know. Whatever. Yes, I understand what you mean.
Yes. So at worst, the Colts thought they were getting a better game manager. At worst, they thought that. At best, they were like, okay, this is the best quarterback we've had. I mean, he'll at least give us a Phillip Rivers 2020 season where, yeah, Rivers had some bad games, but he had some high-end games in there as well. Ryan made some big plays last week against the Chiefs. He was fine, but, man, any sort of pressure is an adventure right now for
and they're
Matt
getting
Ryan.
pressure. Like, that's the big thing, is that for years we've talked about the Colts as having one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and it isn't anymore. Matt Pryor is clinging on at left tackle, trying to do what he can. They just don't have the personnel as good as it used to be. Like, you've still got good players there, but Quentin Nelson, presumably because of what's around him now, is not playing the way Quentin Nelson has played at the start of his NFL career. I mean, he was
It was a bomb cyclone. Thank you, Ben. I love when Ben Stockwell, not just the greatest data collector in the history of PFF, maybe the world, the greatest football data collector, but a live fact checker.
Yeah,
that could remind us that it was the bomb cyclone that forced 4 turnover-worthy plays for Carson Wentz on Sunday Night Football last year.
Right. Remember, early in Nelson's career, he wasn't just the best guard in the NFL, but like the most valuable offensive lineman. Despite playing guard, where they're less valuable than tackle. He's not playing like that anymore. And I don't know if that's trying to make up for people around him or what the story is, but Nelson is not playing like Nelson, and he's the best player on that offensive line. So they're giving up pressure, and Matt Ryan, when he gets pressure now, is effectively useless.
Yeah.
So things are just not good for the Colts.
Matt Ryan's been an excellent quarterback throughout his career. If he was a bigger name, he's not a big name, right? He's a very good quarterback. Former MVP, but a very good quarterback. If he was a bigger name, he'd be all over the talk shows. Has Matt Ryan lost it? Has he hit the cliff? But it's a fair question at this point. What else can Matt Ryan offer? But hey, credit the Titans. Tannehill making a few good throws. They're pulling it together at the playmaker position. At playmaker, they're still targeting Derrick Henry in the pass game a little bit more than they had in the past. And I just love that you've got the Autreys and the Schilberts of the world making plays down the stretch here for the Titans. Derrick Henry looking better on the ground, by the way.
Exactly. And Rashad Weaver actually he's slipped into that role of the kind of like, you're out there all the time and you're going to get 3 to 5 pressures every game because you're out there rushing the passer 30 times. He slipped exactly into that role. He might not be a great player, but maybe the biggest thing that Harold Landry brought to the table was ever presence. I am out there every single snap, and because of that, I'm going to get you 60 pressures in the season because I'm rushing the passer 800 times. That's become Rashad Weaver so far. He stepped into that role and doing a pretty good job of it.
All right, let's go to the New York Jets, 24, the Pittsburgh Steelers, 20. Jets move to 2-2. Steelers fall to 1-3. A lot of storylines in this one. Zach Wilson makes his return.
Yep.
Mitchell Trubisky he got hit at the end of the half, but it was a coach's decision. He gets benched. Kenny Pickett comes in.
Yeah.
And Kenny Pickett looked good. Sparks the team. Also finishes with 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them were his fault.
Right.
So, hey, this might be the most excited Steelers fans are for a loss.
Well, this is so Kenny Pickett goes 10 of 13 for 120 yards with the 3 incompletions all being picked off.
Yeah.
None of which were really his fault. Which is one of the weirdest stat lines you're ever going to see from a quarterback.
A tipped pass, a miscommunication, and a Hail Mary.
Yeah, 9.2 yards per attempt, but what is a passer rating of like 60, 65?
If you have a 65 passer rating with 3 picks on 13 attempts, that's pretty good.
Yeah, particularly
it's tough to do.
Particularly if you then go and determine that none of the 3 were his fault.
Yes.
It's a bizarre debut for him.
When I came to the conclusion when I was watching Trubisky, this was actually his first year with the Bears, too. He actually threw the ball pretty well. Like this year, he wasn't terrible throwing the ball. They were just, he doesn't always go to the right guy.
And he just doesn't offer enough.
I don't think the offense is creating high-value throws either. Pickett did seem a little bit more willing to throw to the middle of the field. His most spectacular plays, I mean, by the way, Pickett converted 2 QB sneaks, which was like, first off, you didn't see Big Ben do that in 18 years. Just convert QB sneaks. One of them was a touchdown. But if you're going to, sell yourself as the next Steelers quarterback, a second effort QB sneak for a touchdown is a pretty good start. It's a pretty good way to, appeal to the Pittsburgh fans.
It also, I think, the way there's a kind of perpetual campaign to be like, well, that interception should go on the receiver's stat sheet, not the quarterback's. I think we need to start giving QB sneaks to the running back that drives them forward from behind. So one of those QB sneaks was a Najee Harris QB sneak. Like Pickett ran into a brick wall, and then Najee Harris basically grabs hold of him. And
second effort. Second effort.
Yeah. Second effort once the 235-pound running back grabs hold of you and throws you through a gap.
I'm just saying, in this one, Trubisky he had some bad throws in there, but he threw an absolute dime, big-time throw. He may have had the best throw of the week to Deontay Johnson in the back of the end zone, splitting the coverage, but just out of bounds, didn't count.
Can I take a victory lap, by the way, and exactly predicting the week that Kenny Pickett would get on the field?
Yes.
I said that week 4 was as long as Trubisky would get, exactly the same way as Mike Glennon. It was the same week. Week 4, Mike Glennon, after signing his 3-year, $45 million contract, and then drafting Trubisky like a month later, he made it 4 weeks, and then they benched him, and Trubisky came in for the start for Chicago, and that was the changing of the guard. I was like, that's the same length of time Trubisky will get in Pittsburgh. That's exactly the way it panned out. And I think Kenny Pickett might not be the answer to everything that ails Pittsburgh. He's not going to fix everything by himself, but he does offer more than Trubisky. You can see more things are on the table when Kenny Pickett is playing and when he's throwing. And you can even just in the game yesterday, you can see it in some of the target map and some of the kind of the breakdown and where the passes were in terms of short of the sticks, past the sticks, all those kinds of things. Pickett will make a difference to this offense. Now, the offense might still stink schematically, so I don't know. It might not fix it, but they're going to be better with Pickett there, I think.
Yeah, so that's what I want to see, right? We made excuses for the offense last year because Big Ben was old. And he wasn't moving, he was just throwing the ball underneath, getting rid of it quickly. I thought Trubisky, again, overall, wasn't really putting the ball in harm's way, was throwing the ball, actually throwing the ball better than he had in the past. And my conclusion was they're low-value throws or they're low-percentage throws, including like yesterday's to Deontay Johnson. It's kind of a low-percentage pass, but he put it there, right? Like, credit Trubisky. But it wasn't translating to, offense. It wasn't translating to points whatsoever. Let's see if Pickett opens up the more valuable throws in the offense. This will be a good test for him because, George Pickens had his 100 yards yesterday. Pickens looked good. You have Pat Freiermuth. You did see Pickett throw to him over the middle of the field. Freiermuth can work the seam extremely well. I don't know. I'm more optimistic, I think, about the Steelers. I'm more optimistic about Kenny Pickett, the Steelers' offense. I mean, I had a feeling he was going to provide a spark when he came in. So much so, I really thought he was going to hit the Hail Mary in like legend, just the legendary status in Pittsburgh for the rest of his life, no matter what happened. It didn't go that way, but it did have somebody had mentioned, I think on the broadcast they mentioned, this feels like Baker Mayfield coming in as a rookie in week 3, sparking the crowd. It didn't go that way, though, because Zach Wilson started playing well on the other side.
I mean, Hail Marys are called Hail Marys for a reason, but if you're looking at the personnel the Steelers have to deploy on a Hail Mary, I mean, you have a better chance of bringing one of those down than other teams,
Oh, yeah.
You can put Chase Claypool and George Pickens. These are guys capable of making spectacular, high-point catches in the end zone with people all around them. Now, it didn't happen, but I can understand why you would be more optimistic about a Kenny Pickett, Hail Mary into that group than you would, for some random team that doesn't have any, like Green Bay right now.
On the other side, we mentioned this last week, I think, with the Jets, or maybe 2 weeks ago. The defense. So last week, the defense just busting coverages and, allowing the Bengals to, a little too easy for the Bengals offense last week against the Jets. This week, as they've shown at times this year, their talent just started to step up, right? With the Sauce Gardners of the world, Jermaine Johnson had a pretty good game, the rookie first rounder. So the defense started to make some better plays down the stretch here. But then you have Zach Wilson making his debut. Rough first half, passing grade in the 30s. Second half, though, passing grade in the 80s. Looks like a completely different quarterback and leads the game-winning drive. Look at Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
Coming together in the second half.
Zach Wilson.
You don't seem sold.
He was basically bad right up until the game-winning drive, and then he went, I think, 6 for 6 and executed the win. And it's all of a sudden Pittsburgh have lost the game. Like, what the hell just happened?
Maybe my expectations are too low, but I didn't think he was. My expectations are too low.
He had 4 turnover-worthy plays in the game. He was pretty bad.
Yeah. But look at him bouncing back.
Yeah. Oh, he also he had 4 turnover-worthy plays. He also had an interception that wasn't. He put the ball right in his receiver's hands, ends up popping right to Minkah Fitzpatrick. The frequency with which the ball simply bounces to Minkah Fitzpatrick continues to blow my mind. I don't understand. It's there's something to being in the right place at the right time. That is a skill as a defender. You can put yourself around the ball more than other players that don't see things. However, there are times where the guy is in front of you open making a catch and he simply paddle hands the ball and it bounces over his head into your hands. You didn't really do anything on that play other than catch a bouncing football. I don't understand how that happens so often to Minkah.
Did we say the same thing about Ed Reed? Minkah's Ed Reed.
No. No, we didn't say it, and no, he's not Ed Reed. He's more like Jarius Byrd, but like over a bigger period of time. Remember when Jarius Byrd
didn't have that many interceptions last year, did he?
No, but the ball finds him in a way that I was asking the same questions about Jarius Byrd for a while. Like, how does the ball keep ending up in his hands so regularly? Because it's not like Ed Reed, where you can see there's a tape study thing going on. He's actually baiting people and making these plays over and over and over again. Anyway, Minkah had another good game in addition to that play bouncing into his hands.
The other one that he almost had, one of Zach Wilson's turnover-worthy plays, was a throwaway that he put on the sideline. Minkah almost had a sideline interception. He's trying to toe tap it, just barely falls out of bounds. But yeah, he's a ball magnet, Minkah.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's some open throws over the middle of the field, which could be his fault as well.
So anyway, my point at the start of this is Zach Wilson, I don't think played particularly well, and then had a good drive that won the game.
And I would say when the offense was looking good in the fourth quarter, I just think you just see a better talent level for the Jets. You just see having Garrett Wilson out there and having Elijah Moore and having Corey Davis was their top receiver. It's just better, man. It's just better in New York. They've got more defensive talent. They've got more offensive talent. So even if Zach Wilson doesn't have a good first half, they have enough to be able to make the comeback there. It's way better than they were 2 years ago. I think that's encouraging if you're the Jets. What are they down at their their left tackle spot.
Who came in? I know they had
Connor McDermott.
Wow.
Max Mitchell.
Yes. So Max Mitchell, the rookie, 5th round pick. Am I making that up?
I'm clicking it right now. 4th. Yeah, I thought it was
Fourth round pick. So yeah, rookie 4th round pick. Who's a guy we liked. Graded very well in college from Louisiana.
Yep.
The concern was, is he a little bit too lightweight? Like, he's listed at under 300 pounds despite being 6'6". It's like, does he have the strength and the kind of power to survive at this level? He'd actually been doing a good job for them at right tackle.
He's playing right. He played right yesterday.
And overperforming what we thought he was capable of, given those sort of size limitations and those kinds of things. And then he goes down yesterday. So they are just absolutely wrecked in terms of tackles. They've just been hit player after player after player. That's the worst of these acute injuries at left tackle problem.
Meanwhile, we've got the Steelers' offensive line pass blocking pretty well overall. Far better than we had expected. So they weren't too bad. A couple bad plays in there. But yeah, the Jets are stitching it together. And my issue with Zach Wilson, we saw that early on. It looked like he's just not handling pressure very well. He's running into pressure, running into sacks and everything. That part's got to be better. I don't know if the second half, whatever comfort level he had. But I would say last year we were just like looking for encouraging games for Zach Wilson. He had the game, I think, second to last week of the year against the Bucs, where the first half was spectacular, like the best Zach Wilson had played, but the second half wasn't. I know we're reversing things right now, but maybe this was a turning point for Wilson in his career. I just think they just have a more equipped team this year around him.
This is one of those
despite the offensive line issues.
This is one of those weird games where I think it does actually say something relatively accurate about both teams, which is, okay, the Jets end up stealing a win. They're now 2-2. You're like, yeah, okay, the Jets, they're moving in the right direction overall as a franchise, and they might be pretty feisty this year. But unless Zach Wilson takes a pretty big step forward, they're not going to be, a real team this year. Maybe that happens next year or whatever. And then for the Steelers, it's like, okay, encouraging from Kenny Pickett. I think they'll be better with him as the quarterback versus Mitchell Trubisky. But they lose to the Jets, they're 1-3, and you're like, you know what, it's not enough. Like, you're just not actually a particularly good team right now.
The PFF NFL podcast is sponsored by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home? Planning to start a family? Wondering how to make your money grow? Western and Southern's playbook of life insurance, investment, and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. Get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. /show code.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Falcons. That's where we're going. Falcons 23. Browns 20. Look at the Falcons. They moved to 2-2 like everybody else in the league. Browns fall to 2-2. And you said this was going to be a sneaky good game. You lied. I mean, it was a good game. It doesn't score. It was, it was an average game.
Then how did I lie? It was fine. What's wrong with it?
Maybe because it was driven by the running games. Both teams averaging over 5 yards per carry.
You just hate the run game. That's
I do.
The problem.
Tyler Algier looking great. 10 carries, 84 yards. Caleb Huntley. That's the Falcons running backs who went off yesterday. Huntley, Algier, and the Falcons win a game with Marcus Mariota completing 7 passes.
Yeah. There were 2 games won yesterday with an absurdly small number of completions. This was if you're getting out of control in terms of, hey, Jacoby Brissett is better than Deshaun Watson, this was the game that reminded you, actually, we've just been catching the high end of the Jacoby range of outcomes / roller coaster. There's worse to come, and over 11 weeks, we're probably going to see worse. This was some of the worst, including, we were talking about what Lamar Jackson passed up / missed on 4th down. Didn't see the open touchdown. Jacoby Brissett just straight threw the ball away on 4th down. Now, okay, he'd run around, he extended the play for a while, but still, like, end zone, it was 4th and goal, I think, and rather than throw it in the end zone because what the hell, it's 4th down, he was like, nothing's open, throw it away, live to fight another day.
We said he likes to limit turnover-worthy plays.
He really does.
Except at the end of the game here. He does throw a game-ending interception. Was it game-ending, right? Basically, game-ending interception. Again. So second time in 4 weeks here in a fourth quarter comeback attempt. So Brissett played a really clean game last week, Thursday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not so much here. And, credit the Falcons, man. They're creating offense. They're creating mismatches in the run game and everything. Excuse me. All that said, I think you saw how much the Browns missed Myles Garrett in this game.
Sure.
I mean, they just missed. I mean, the entire defensive line got smashed. They already don't have good interior defensive linemen, but they got owned up front, and that was the difference in the game. This was a trench game that the Browns did well offensively as far as moving the ball through the run game and everything, but defensively the Browns just could not match up.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's defensive line has been Myles Garrett and then other people for a while. You remove Myles Garrett from that. It's a lot like Pittsburgh's defensive line, where when you remove TJ Watt from it, it changes everything. Like TJ Watt have some more, the Steelers rather have some more players than Cleveland does, Cameron Hayward, but it completely transforms how you attack that defense or how you contend or how you contain the pass rush and what they can do. You take Myles Garrett out of this lineup, it's just not the same defense.
Yeah, so when the grades are out, the defensive line will not be good for the Cleveland Browns. So credit a
lot of not good for the Cleveland Browns.
I mean, just a lot across the board.
Grant Delpit had a good game, though.
I mean, their defensive grade overall, 34, 28 run defense grade. Denzel Ward played well for the first time this year, right?
Yeah.
That was it.
He'll probably argue that, though.
For the Browns. Oh, was he an arguer?
Yeah, He complained the other week that we only gave up one catch. We had him charged for like 4 or 5 or something.
Was he tweeting that out?
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of those funny ones, though, where he tweets it complaining and everybody else actually argued with him.
Oh, yeah.
You know? It was like, actually, well, what about this play? Like, other people took up the mantle and were like, hey, how do you claim you aren't responsible for these catches?
Yeah. But, yeah, man, credit the Falcons. I mean, Arthur Smith, was he chippy again? I don't know.
It's always chippy.
He's chippy again.
So this is why I like
He's excited
this
about the run game.
Because completed 7 passes. Now, the 7 passes went for 139 yards, so there was some production in there. But this is the kind of – Atlanta can win games like this with this offense. That's why it's an entertaining offense to watch every week, because it doesn't need a ton of passing production. It can have success on the ground. It's very hard to stop everything within this offense.
It's going to be obnoxious. It's obnoxious for fantasy owners, though. You got Kyle Pitts with 1 catch and Drake London, who'd been incredible. He gets targeted 7 times, but only 2 catches.
The Kyle Pitts thing is becoming a talking point. Because remember that we're a couple of weeks away from, it's not fantasy football. Like, he'll get the ball when he needs the ball to win. But now it's not even like he's not getting targets. It's like he's not on the field as much as other players. So
12 snaps on pass plays.
Yeah, but remember, so this was not a high passing game. So
I know, but it's out of 20.
I know. So you look at the deployment of talent, offensive skill position players, whatever, in this game for Atlanta. And it's like, well, you got a couple of problems here. One, you're essentially treating Kyle Pitts as a situational player now. He's a passing player. He's not really on the field as much for run plays. So all of a sudden he's being outsnapped by Parker Hesse. You know? Parker Hesse gets 48 snaps yesterday. Kyle Pitts has 34. Now that's a problem immediately. I understand.
Do they play the same position?
Well, they both play tight end, quote unquote.
Ah.
But Kyle Pitts is being treated as essentially the designate. He's the move tight end. He's the receiver of the group. So when they have run formations or when they're like power type football, evidently Parker Hesse is the guy that's playing tight end, whereas Kyle Pitts is like, well, you come on when we're passing the ball effectively. Look.
But you've been saying he's a receiver, so they're not playing the same
He is
position.
a receiver, but I also think he can be a tight end. Like, this is the thing that Kyle Pitts is less special if you don't embrace the fact that he can do both. Like, if you just look at him and say, we're going to make him our X receiver, A, you already drafted one of those in Drake London, who looks pretty good as well. So you immediately have kind of a problem. But also, it's just not taking advantage of what he does, because immediately you're taking him off the field. So they're not, because they are treating Drake London as the X. Like, Drake London played 44 snaps. That makes sense. There's just no reason Kyle Pitts should be getting 10 fewer snaps than that in a game, particularly a game where you're not having as much success passing the ball as you would like to have. It's one thing to say he's on the field every snap, but he didn't get any targets because we go where the open guy is. That's an argument I can listen to, because that makes some sense. But this is a different argument. This is, well, Kyle Pitts isn't on the field because we believe Parker Hesse gives us a better chance to win on these plays.
I really wonder how much. I really wonder how much this week was, though. The Browns are so beat up on the defensive line. That's the game plan. We're going to run. I mean, not only do we want to run the ball, but like this week in particular, we're going run heavy, and that's what we're going to do.
I know, but what I'm simply arguing is I'm not 100% sold on the idea that Parker Hesse gives you a better chance to do that than Kyle Pitts.
I mean, Hesse's a better run blocker.
Yeah, but is it much better? And also, it's not like Kyle Pitts doesn't bring other threats to the table.
No, I get it. We've got a year 4 O-line breakout potential alert here. Caleb McGarry, former first-round pick, who's been below average over the last 3 years. He has a huge game. Guard Chris Lindstrom has a huge game. Good speaking. Both of those guys were first-round picks a few years ago. They were key parts here.
Lindstrom's grade go up. It's currently sitting at a 99.9. Is that honestly what it is?
Looks like what it is. Dominant run blocking grades for both. We'll have to check it out.
That would be, that's got to be the greatest single game grade we've ever seen, right? Simply because there is no higher grade than that.
Well, let's see when it goes live. If it's not live yet, I don't know.
Okay.
All right, what else do we have for 1 o'clock games? Going slow. Philadelphia Eagles 29. Jacksonville Jaguars 21. Eagles fall behind 14-0. Then they go on a 29-0 run. Jaguars tried to claw back in. Jaguars claw. But not enough. Another rain game here that
throw it out.
No, don't throw it out. Very much happened because Trevor Lawrence's ball security was terrible.
It was wet.
Partially because of the rain. But another game where the Eagles show they can win in different ways. In this particular game, it's Miles Sanders going off for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns, winning up front for the Eagles despite losing left tackle Jordan Mailata early in the game. Eagles remain the only undefeated team in the league.
Yeah, and so this was an impressive game from Philadelphia because of a couple of things. One, losing Jordan Mailata after, 6 snaps? Yep. 2, they went down pretty hard early, 14-0 hole. Jacksonville looked good. We've been talking about Jacksonville being a team on the rise, a couple of good games from Trevor Lawrence sequentially. They beat up on the Chargers last week. All of a sudden, Philadelphia, for the first time this season, are in a completely different game flow than they've been. They've been front runners. They've been the team out ahead, leading from a position of strength. Now they're 14-0 down. Things aren't going as well, and it's a whole different scenario. Remember that Mike Tyson quote? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Mm-hmm. Well, this was the first time this season the Eagles got punched in the mouth. And it's like, well, what's your game plan now? It turns out the game plan is the same. We just keep on trucking, and we'll come back from 14-0 down. And they have started to, they kind of have the same approach of the Bills, which is when in doubt, let Jalen Hurts figure it out. And it functions for them. Like, they are basically unstoppable when they do the QB sneak or QB draw stuff. And that was a big part of how Jalen Hurts was executing this comeback in the second quarter.
Yeah, so to fall behind, Jalen Hurts throws a pick 6. Andre Sisco takes it to the house. Did they fumble a kickoff return after that? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
There was some sort of other turnover, right? I think in there.
Yeah.
But then the Jags they gave it back the other way too. Not only did Lawrence, his ball security was just...
Well, that's the thing about these wet weather games is, okay, you can put the ball on the ground a couple of times and that's bad, but there's a pretty good chance they will as well because it's not like it's only affecting you. So if you hang tough, there's a reasonable chance they'll give you one back.
Lawrence fumbled a QB sneak attempt in the second quarter. He gets fooled on an interception. Great play by James Bradbury. Remember, we highlighted him before the game as a near identical coverage grade and coverage stats to Darius Slay, who is going to be all-pro. Darius Slay is going to be all pro because of that Monday Night Football game. But James Bradbury had the great interception on the wheel route, kind of baiting Trevor Lawrence. As much as we had talked about, hey, Lawrence is looking good, back-to-back games, and you want to throw it out because of the weather and all that stuff, the Eagles weren't having it.
Let me ask you the same question that was being asked last week. Is Trevor Lawrence currently a top 10 quarterback?
No.
Yeah. Off the back of his 29 passing grade.
Yeah, I mean, we'll throw it out.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
now we
throw
can
it
throw
out.
it out. I'm just saying this is why you might
closer.
want to, not ask questions like that after 2 reasonable games, because this happens.
I think they were just asking the question, man.
No, because people were saying yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Nobody said yes.
People said yes.
Jamal Agnew is like one of the most fascinating players in the NFL to me.
Yeah.
He catches 4 for 50 yards, a couple scores for the Jags.
Well, let me ask you a question about, so why is Jamal Agnew a better Travis Etienne than Travis Etienne?
I don't know. But, I mean, Agnew's like that guy that, I mean, he's whatever he is positionally. Receiver, move him around, he creates big plays. But that should be like your number 4. And there were times in, last year where Trevor Lawrence, it's like you're throwing to Jamal Agnew. He doesn't run like the nuanced wide receiver routes that you need and all that stuff, but he will take the top off the defense. But he's usually a nice complement to Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, and the whole deal. But Marvin Jones does pretty much nothing yesterday. Christian Kirk has a busted coverage for a bunch of yards late or whatever. But like the key receivers in this game for the Jaguars.
Christian Kirk had 9 targets and 2 catches.
Yeah. The key receivers aren't producing.
He also had 3 drops in there, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, rain game. Throw it out.
That's what I'm saying.
But Agnew being the guy that is a nice compliment to them. But anyway, Philadelphia, you have A.J. Brown. They win different ways, man. Last week it was Devontae Smith. He only had the 17 yards in this one. A.J. Brown continues to be fantastic. Dallas Goedert making plays. And like I said, Sanders on the ground. Jalen Hurts ran the ball a bunch, but 4 rushing touchdowns. Kenneth Gainwell found the end zone late in the game too. Had a negated touchdown reception, I believe it was, and then ran one in as well. The Eagles have multiple ways to win. That is the story right now.
Yeah, and I thought they adjusted well to losing Jordan Mailata. Like the first drive or 2 after that happened, they were very sort of conservative / timid about what they were running on offense. And then once they figured out, yeah, we're still okay, but this isn't going to be a total disaster at left tackle, then they functioned again. The offense was what it should be, and I think that was impressive. So hugely impressed generally by Philadelphia in this game. Coming back from the punch in the mouth and adjusting on the fly to losing one of your best players on offense and potentially destabilizing like the foundation of everything that's been going well in terms of the offensive line. For them to come away with this win was very impressive.
So to finish the game here, Philly was up 29-14. They had been on a 29-0 run. Jaguars come back, score, get within 8, and then they get the ball back with a 2-minute drive. Minute 54 left. I think as soon as I sent you a message, here we go, Trevor Lawrence, a little comeback opportunity. I think the rain had stopped by this point, right? Still a wet ball, whole deal. And Hassan Reddick with the strip sack on the very first play to end it for the Eagles. So you've got Hassan Reddick. He had the best pass rush. He had 2 strip sacks in there, so 94-plus pass rush grade. I don't think the Eagles' pass rush wasn't incredible across the board. It was really just Reddick making those huge plays. Those were the 2 sacks. Those were the strip sacks. And that's it.
Yeah, Jacksonville's offensive line has been reasonable, actually, this season.
They have. They've actually been a little bit better than I expected. Anything else on the Eagles here, moving to 4-0?
No, just my general, I am impressed.
I am as well. Chargers, 34. Houston Texans, 24. Chargers got up big early. Texans remain feisty. They got it within a score. It was 21-0. Chargers almost immediately. They get up to 27-7 by the half. And then the Texans start to creep back a little bit. Davis Mills hits Brandon Cooks. First touchdown by a receiver for the Texans. Wide receiver for the Texans. And they get within 3, 27-24. But Chargers come back with the score to move to 34-24. And that was it. Chargers pull away and cover. We both called it. Yep. Cover the 5.
Big game from Dameon Pierce, a running back. The Texans rookie ends up with over 100 yards, 100 yards after contact, a couple explosive runs in there, including the big touchdown run. He looked very good. Austin Eckler finally had the monster fantasy game that everyone's been whinging about. So a game where running backs showed up.
A game where running backs showed up. And Justin Herbert got away with uncharacteristic turnover-worthy play early in the game, but other than that, looked pretty good again. Coming back from the torn cartilage, didn't miss a whole bunch of throws, adjusted completion percentage over 76. Chargers offense, even without Keenan Allen, just looking good here. Texans remain feisty, but that's pretty much it.
A random game where Jerry Tillery looked like college Jerry Tillery.
Those have been rare.
Yeah, had an impact sack. That was a really nice play. You don't see a ton of that in the NFL from Jerry, but it showed it's at least still there. He's capable of it. I just don't understand why it doesn't happen all the time.
The player had a big game as well.
Yeah, and so Joey Bosa is going to be out a long time. I can't remember how many weeks was it, like 8 weeks or something? They're going to be missing him.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Chris Rumpf he had 20 pass rushes. One of the guys trying to replace Joey Bosa, not so hot. Morgan Fox on the interior provided pretty good pass rush there. So Chargers tapping into their depth, like a lot of teams, but tapping into their depth. You still have this weird J.C. Jackson season going, man. He made a ton of money. He's got 2 games and grading under 40 overall. Chargers cornerback who, speaking of ball magnets, we were talking about Minkah Fitzpatrick. J.C. Jackson just knew how to pick the ball off. I am curious about this. I mean, you're coming from a man-heavy scheme with New England, going to the Chargers, completely different system. It did feel like, though, a guy that is a turnover machine would fit well into the system, but they're playing a different style. It's early on. He's been battling injuries, but something to keep an eye on for the Chargers. Even in this win, you just want to keep an eye on it for J.C. Jackson.
Yeah. This is a weird game because it felt so in control for the Chargers until Houston ended up making it a little bit closer late in the game. Jamari Sawyer played pretty well for the Chargers. Remember, no Rashawn Slater, so is that offensive line going to survive, going to hold up, going to give Justin Herbert enough time and be able to keep going? Okay, they had Corey Linsley back. That will help.
Rookie 6th rounder playing excellent for the Chargers.
Yeah, and a guy who, he looks like a guard in terms of body shape, without meaning to fat shame the man. He's shaped like a guard, but he was a left tackle for the national champion Georgia Bulldogs and a pretty good one in the SEC. All these things that everybody talks about as
between the hedges,
as credentials for the NFL, he had. But because he's sort of shaped like a guard, it's like, well, he's a 6th rounder, and if we're going to play him anywhere, he's going to go inside. But no Rashawn Slater. He goes out, plays left tackle, plays well. So, I mean, it's one game. Who knows? Sample size thing. But the Texans have got pass rushers, and if that's an indication of what he can do, number one, the Chargers might be fine at left tackle for a while without Rashawn Slater. And number two, he's making a case that when Slater gets back, he could be your starting right tackle.
Yeah, I really thought the Texans had a chance to create pressure up front, and they did not. So, not very good by them. Chargers defensive front played a good game. Texans moved to 0-3. Are they the only winless team left? Texans?
With their 0-3-1.
0-3-1 Texans. Anyway, Chargers win. They move to 2-2 like the rest of the league. Not like the 3-1 Giants.
No.
The Giants 20, Bears 12. Bears fall to 2-2.
Well, that changes everything. Because when I was saying that Justin Fields was struggling as a passer, all the Bears fans are saying, yeah, but we're 2-1.
Mike Renner just tweeted out an incredible stat. Did you happen to see it?
Nope.
About Justin Fields. Justin Fields has turned, this is the quote from our friend, Mike Renner, at PFF_Mike. Justin Fields has turned 49 dropbacks under pressure this season into only 5 completions. 5 completions on 49 dropbacks under pressure.
That's not good.
Yeah. Fields throws, his best throw of the year, an absolute dime to Darnell Mooney, 56-yarder. Not that you can take that away, but other than that, it was a rough offense again for the Bears.
That play felt like it should have gone for more yardage. It felt like Mooney made a mess at tracking that and ends up making the catch anyway in a decent end. Like,
it's a beautiful throw.
Yeah. But so he ends up making a good catch at the end, but it felt like there was no need to make it as hard as it looked. Like, if he just kept running and tracked it properly, he would have actually been able to catch it in stride and potentially housed it. I don't know. It just felt like a weird play in terms of tracking the ball for Mooney, who, let's be honest, has not had the ball come his way an awful lot this season.
Hasn't had a lot of practice. So, hey, credit the Giants, their defense. Saquon Barkley had his buck 46 again. Daniel Jones remains one of the most dangerous. I mean, he's been one of the most productive runners in the NFL. At quarterback. Of course, he ends up getting hurt. Tyrod Taylor comes in, throws a pick on 3 attempts.
Gets concussed.
Eddie Jackson finally found the ball.
Yeah.
Tyrod gets concussed, and, man, who the heck's going to play quarterback for that big 3-1 versus 3-1 matchup against the Packers next week?
Tyrod Taylor had 3 pass attempts and 2 turnover-worthy plays.
It's impressive.
It is. Not in the way you want to be impressive, but it is impressive. At one point...
That's what Mike Glennon would do last year for the Giants when he came in.
Nathan Peterman. It's Peterman special.
Yeah.
So Tyrod gets concussed. Daniel Jones got a gimpy ankle. And at one point, the Giants had no quarterback and were running wildcat plays with Saquon Barkley with a hobbled Daniel Jones essentially standing at wide receiver just watching this happen. Then they eventually decided Jones could get back in and keep functioning. But I don't quite understand why the Bears defense had never considered the possibility that Daniel Jones might keep the ball on one of these play-action plays and just run into the open field that's been undefended. But that happened multiple times in this game, which is weird. They essentially treated Daniel Jones as if he was Peyton Manning. Remember that famous Peyton Manning play where he does the same thing, like keeps it, runs into the flat, and it's like, I never saw that coming, because that happened once every 10 years.
Right, naked boot, he'd just keep it. Yeah.
That happened like once every 10 years, where eventually teams would literally treat Peyton Manning like he was an ornamental part of the play, and they would keep it, and he'd be literally nobody within 20 yards of him. They were doing that to Daniel Jones, except that's a fairly regular thing for Daniel Jones to run the ball.
Yeah, Jones is a good, effective runner, and he was again in this one. The leading receivers for the Giants, tight end, Daniel Bellinger.
Of course.
Tight end, Tanner Hudson.
Yeah.
Running back, Saquon Barkley.
Uh-huh.
And then you finally get to receiver Darius Slate. I mean, by the way, Bellinger was the leader with 23 receiving yards. Then you finally get Darius Slayton and Richie James combined for 20 yards.
Just look at
David
targets.
Sills had 5.
No receiver of any description had more than 4 targets for the Giants. No wide receiver had more than 3 targets.
It's going to sound like we're hating on the 3-1 Giants, but again, I'm going to reiterate the schedule.
Well, I mean,
hey, the Giants pulled the upset against the Titans.
They might be the worst 3-1 team ever.
Of course.
Might be. I mean,
have to be.
Who was the last one? Is it the Panthers from a couple of years ago?
There was the year the Panthers went 6-2 and took a lot of crap for calling them the worst 6-2 team in history, and they ended up being 6-6 within weeks. They lost like their next 4.
The Giants are not good, but they won against another not good team.
Yeah, they beat the Panthers a couple weeks ago, lose to the Cowboys, beat the Bears. This is what I'm saying about the schedule. Yeah, the Giants, they beat the Titans, who, are, I don't know, maybe a decent team. But because the Giants got to play the Panthers and the Bears in 2 out of the first 4 weeks, this is why everybody's 2-2. That's why everybody's 2-2. The Bears got to play the Texans.
Yeah.
Right? The NFL, man, they nailed it this year. Give everybody hope.
Dexter Lawrence was
Dexter Lawrence was fantastic.
8 pressures, 2 sacks, a hit, 5 hurries, 3 pass rush wins that didn't get to become pressure because the ball was gone. Like, he was an absolute beast in this game.
Only a handful of times. Micah McFadden, the rookie linebacker, he was one of the better college pass rushing linebackers. He had a couple pressures in there as well. Just like a good fit for the Giants. Just want to highlight that because they blitz so much. Just a good fit for what they want to do. But yeah, Dexter Lawrence was fantastic. The Giants, Andrew Thomas continues to play great at left tackle. And Giants pass rush was really good. And then Justin Fields, again, 6 sacks here. 6 sacks and 11 completions. There's just too many. I know a couple of those sacks were for like no yards. But listen, for all the people last year who were like, this is Matt Nagy's fault. Matt Nagy is ruining Justin Fields. I mean, maybe he did ruin him, which is why we have these bad plays this year. But everybody last year was like, Matt Nagy, you idiot, just roll Justin Fields out. That's all you have to do. Like Justin Fields has a clear, wide open bootleg, right? You run the bootleg, get the defense moving, you get the tight end in the flat. He's got an open tight end in the flat. He just doesn't throw it and takes the sack instead. That was the first sack for the Bears. Like, you got to get better at the easy stuff. Every now and again, Fields will reel you back in with the special throws, like he did last year in the Pittsburgh game and like he does to the Darnell Mooney throw. Or a spectacular run here and there. He still had it over 50 yards on the ground. You got to get better at the easy stuff.
Yeah.
If you're Justin Fields and the Bears. And I know the supporting cast isn't great. I know all that stuff. And by the way, this was the game, as great as Dexter Lawrence was and everything, this was the game we expected probably the Bears offensive line to have all year, which was just getting whooped up front. They had been decent because they're not pass protecting a ton and they are moving the pocket and doing all this stuff to protect them. But Fields, not only does he have to be better under pressure, 5 completions on the 49 pressure dropbacks, as we said, just got to get better at the easy stuff. If you're Justin Fields, if you're going to be the guy going forward.
Yeah, so 6 sacks, only 3 of which were charged to blockers. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like a couple where he's scrambling and they were for like no yard. That was like one of those no yards where you call it like depending on where it is, it's like a no gain or a sack. Like there was a couple of those. There's the Fields rollout, which was completely on him. But they did give up a lot of pressure. Sure. I mean, they did get whooped up front.
Well, my point being, it's being made to look worse by Justin Fields at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at sack totals, yes, it's Fields, but this was a poor performance up front overall by the Bears.
Yeah,
all of it's true.
Yeah, right, which is usually the way this stuff works, is that it has a compounding effect, and the sum of the problem is greater than the individual parts.
Let's go to the 4 o'clock games. Green Bay Packers 27, New England Patriots 24. Brian Hoyer knocked out of the game after the first drive.
Yeah.
Opening the door for Bailey Zappi, rookie 4th-round pick out of Western Kentucky. And, I mean, when you see that happening, it's like, hey, Packers they're gonna mop up. They're gonna win this thing. But the Patriots hung tough. They stayed in it. Romeo Doubs has what did we say? It was Doubs, right?
Yeah.
Romeo Doubs fumbles early, right? Keeps the Patriots in it. Then Aaron Rodgers throws a pick 6 before the half, and it's like Patriots are leading at the half with Bailey Zappi under center. The Patriots were not completely dusting off the game plan from Windy Buffalo last year, where they wouldn't throw it at all, but it was a lot of first down runs. They didn't want Zappi dropping back unless it was with like deep play action, 2-man concepts. And Aaron Rodgers has a rough first half, but boy, I think what turned the game, Rodgers had a couple 3rd and long absolute dimes, where if he doesn't make those pinpoint throws, I mean, this game, like the Patriots win going away. Rodgers was part of the problem early, but I'm saying he hits Alan Lazard on a 3rd and long, hits Randall Cobb, throws some absolute dimes, and then his best throw was to Doubs in the end zone, should have been the game-winning touchdown, but falls incomplete.
Yeah, I mean, you're just seeing the weekly realization of the problems that Green Bay have at receiver. Like, okay, Alan Lazard ended up with 100 yards, fine, but you can see plays where Lazard's just not capable of being that elite number 1 guy. Romeo Doubs is the closest thing they have to that receiver, and he just he keeps making a mistake that sets him back. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay offense are giving Romeo Doubs every possible opportunity to show that he can be their number 1 receiver over the course of the season. And he just keeps making a big mistake frequently enough that it's like, maybe he can't. Like the fumble, okay, those happen. It wasn't an egregiously bad play by Doubs, but it's the kind of play where you're looking at that, Aaron Rodgers looking at that and going, come on, like keep hold of the ball. The touchdown that was the same thing. Beautiful dime, catches it, secures it on the way, and then loses it as he hits the ground, and the ground forces the incompletion essentially. Again, it's like, okay, they happen, but I really need you to come up with that, like, come on, I'm giving you the shot here. A number 1 receiver comes up with that touchdown. Doubs, I think, has the potential to be that guy, but he's been shooting himself in the foot just a little bit too often so far for it to be locked in already. I
always view that as those are such bad plays, but they're not they just don't happen at a high rate. So like the next time, I said this about Watson, week 1, Aaron Rodgers' first throw of the season, Christian Watson's wide open deep and he drops it. I'm like, he's going to catch 8 out of 10 of those at least.
Yeah.
But the skill is getting open deep. And Dobbs he had the nice back shoulder for a touchdown. He's got that body control. Like, I think they're going to be okay.
But the other thing is,
Dobbs, at least.
You're right in terms of big picture. It's more important that he was open and had the target. But the guy throwing you the ball is the one whose confidence you need to maintain or secure going forward to be that number one guy. And while big picture, it doesn't change anything, the important skill is getting open, and if you get the ball often enough, you'll make those catches and it'll be productive. But if the dude who just watched you drop the pass, the dude who just watched you be the reason that it didn't result in a touchdown is like, you asshole, you just screwed me out of the score, you're not getting the ball for a while. That's a problem, because now it doesn't matter that, next one you'll catch, because you're not going to get the next one anymore. He's going to go somewhere else with the ball. And that's kind of the problem that Christian Watson is dealing with, right? Play number 1 in the NFL, open for a deep touchdown against Patrick Peterson, toasts him, and then drops the ball. Well, he's had 10 total targets across 3 games. He's not getting the ball anymore because Rodgers doesn't trust him. You now get a quick jet sweep. You get a nice, simple rushing play that you can't really screw up. That's your role now. That's the danger with Dobbs. Like, okay, you make a fumble that happens or an incompletion that's kind of on you for a touchdown. The next one you might make, but only if you get the next one. And that's the issue, is that every one of these wide receivers in Green Bay is fighting to secure the confidence of a guy who seems to have, a fairly transient confidence level in these guys.
I think he'll believe in Dobbs.
Well, I think at some point he has to believe in somebody.
Yeah.
Because you just can't function if you don't. And Dobbs is the most likely of them to justify that.
Was it Tony Romo that made the point on Randall Cobb? Like, every now and again, he runs routes, and it's like, man, he looks 10 years younger. Doesn't Randall Cobb feel like he's been in the league like 15 years?
Yeah.
It hasn't been that much.
He's still only 32.
Yeah, he's still only 32. He's not even close to us. But, they might have what they need here. They might have what they need. Rodgers played so much better in the second half than he did in the first half. And I said this last year about the Packers offense. Aaron Jones, I mean, if you're into running back play, 4 good running backs. And 4 running backs played really well between Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon for the Packers, Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson for the Patriots. A lot of run game for both teams in this one. But the Packers tackling Aaron Jones, then trying to tackle A.J. Dillon, challenging, right? And then their first touchdown was Christian Watson on the jet sweep. And it's like, how are you going to, that's 4-3 speed that they're getting to the edge. The Packers do a great job of just making life difficult for their tacklers and in the run game. And then you add the fact that you have Aaron Rodgers, it's like, okay, this should be, if Dobbs can hold on to the ball, Lazard's been solid. Like, this should still be a good or difficult defense or offense to defend. Again, Patriots hung tough in there, but Rodgers just made too many throws in the end.
The Patriots scored on the most ridiculous delay of game non-call that I think I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that thing hit. Sometimes you see the TV and it's like, I wonder if the TV feed is just way off from the actual play clock. It's unofficial.
Right.
I think what happened was, so the back judge is supposed to watch that. They had just picked up a delay of game. And I feel like they didn't. Are they supposed to reset that to 40?
Yeah.
And it felt quick.
Yeah.
So it felt like they only put it to 25. And then when it hit 0, the back judge was like, oh, we forgot to reset. This was my vibe, was that they forgot to reset it. And he was like, we'll just let it slide. It should have been 40. It was 25. But it was sitting at 0 for like a good 2 to 3 seconds.
No, it wasn't even. It reset. It went down. So it hit 0, and then they reset it again to 40, and it started ticking down again. Like, by the time they got the ball off, the play clock was reading 39 from the next time around. You know, just a reminder of what an idiotic process that is. That the way delay for a multi-billion-dollar industry that, the amount of money and investment and everything that hinges on this game and the technology involved in some instances, and yet we measure first downs by eyeballing it and then pulling out a couple of sticks on a chain. And delay of game is measured by a guy sitting at the back watching the play clock tick down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Then once it hits 0,
You have to reach.
he goes and looks for the snap to see if it's moved or not. Like, it's a ridiculous process. It's absolutely insane that this is how it functions. Anyway, for some reason at this game, in this particular instance, it was at least 2 seconds delayed of game, and yet the Patriots end up scoring on the play. I'd be aggrieved about that if I was Green Bay.
Yeah. Again, I feel like that was a more of they didn't reset it properly than, and we're kind of giving the Patriots a pass. But it looked pretty ugly. It looked bad. Anyway, Bailey Zappi, when he did drop back to pass, I mean, he had a couple nice throws on play action, but they couldn't do much other than that. I mean, the Patriots, Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, 4.8 and 4.7 per carry. The Packers knew the Patriots were going to run, had probably no fear of Bailey Zappi, and the Patriots still ran the ball pretty well, just like four yards a pop, 4 yards a pop, broke a couple, 10 to 15 yarders, and hung tough, man. They hung as tough as you possibly could. Ends up going to overtime here. Honestly, the Matt LaFleur used a challenge on their Dobbs near touchdown, which was almost certainly not going to get overturned. That ended up costing the Packers because they had no chance to make a comeback in the fourth quarter, but it didn't ultimately cost you. Rodgers with a game-tying drive and then the game-winning drive in overtime to win by 3.
Huge game from Rashawn Gary. Again.
Yes, he was unblockable, man.
Yeah.
Looked great. What was his final? I was about to actually go check his.
5 pressures, I think, a couple of sacks, 90-something PFF.
He was the only guy. It's one of those games. He was the only guy getting pressure. The fact that he had 5 pressures, only 21 rushes, couple sacks. He had the strip sack in there too, right? I think he did he strip sack? Strip sacked one of them.
The Jones talent this week of the Patriots corners was Jack Jones that got the.
Well, Marcus had some really good returns too.
Well, yeah, but he didn't have the defensive snaps. But of Jonathan Jones, Jack Jones, and Marcus Jones, it was Jack Jones that had the really impressive performance.
Yeah, a rare pick 6 for Aaron Rodgers in this one. He does not. He just left a deep out inside. He does not do that
There were
often.
a few of those plays throughout the NFL yesterday where, I mean, there's always a few of them, but like it's felt like yesterday there was a lot of passes like that where they were just left inaccurately inside and it caused problems.
By the way, the Packers offense, because the Patriots were playing man, the Packers offense felt so disjointed early on. The pass game, the run game was fantastic, but Rodgers kept throwing the ball down the field, kept throwing fades. They were not connecting on any of them. It was just a whole bunch of low percentage throws early on.
That's also the problem with this receiver issue, right? Like Rodgers has been doing that for years, but the guy at the other end is on the same page, and it looks way better. When all of a sudden you don't trust the guy that you're throwing to, or he's just not on the same, he doesn't have the same sync, that Devontae Adams or Jordy Nelson or whatever did. That kind of connection, the chemistry, that's the intangible that's always drawn for that. But that understanding needs to be at both ends of the throw, otherwise the throw looks dumb. If it's only at one end,
right,
and you're like, well, look, you need to understand where I'm putting this ball, otherwise it just looks like I'm throwing it to nowhere. That's what he's living through right now.
Arizona Cardinals 26, Carolina Panthers 16. One of the other 4 o'clock window games. Not the most exciting game in the world.
No.
You know how the scoring started? Frankie Louvu picked 6 for the Panthers. They get up 7-0. But the Barbarian was making big plays.
The Barbarian.
Right? Barbarian was all over the place.
Dennis the Barbarian Gardeck.
So the Panthers offense, all they got was a field goal and then a late touchdown. Baker Mayfield's best throw, seam route to Christian McCaffrey for a 13-yard touchdown to get within 10, failed 2-point conversion with about 4-something left, and that was all she wrote. So Cardinals moved to 2-2. Panthers fall to 1-3. Still a rough Panthers offense, and the Cardinals, they weren't great offensively either. This was a defensive struggle for the majority of the game, but you get Marquise Brown, Zach Ertz get into the end zone on touchdown passes from Kyler Murray, and the Cardinals survive.
They do. They survive. The Panthers offense, it's so bad across the board. Like there's basically no good element to this offense at all. Nobody's being put in this position to succeed. Some people are occasionally succeeding anyway, in spite of not being put in a position to succeed, but it's pretty miserable to watch. Like overall, there was a little bit of a shine put on it late with the plays they had, but I mean, changes need to be made for this thing to function in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, we said because Arizona's defense had been struggling this year, so it might be the week where they look a little bit better.
Yeah, not so much.
It was not.
No.
Arizona's offense, though. So, I mean, Panthers' defense has played pretty well. Luvu's he has the pick 6, but I mean, it's still like this. There's just not a lot of big plays in Arizona's offense either. I do wonder when DeAndre Hopkins comes back if that helps a little bit. Once you push Marquise Brown down a little bit, and
well, also just what that looks like, because Marquise Brown has been the high volume guy as well as the deep threat and everything else they have going. Rondale Moore came back in this game. He tied for the lead with the Cardinals in terms of receiving snaps, but that pushed Greg Dortch essentially off the field, who's actually been productive for them so far this season.
Got to keep Dortch. Got to keep him going.
The Cardinals offense, in terms of skill position players, they have some work to do in terms of figuring out how this whole thing fits together. There's a lot of talent there, but again, like, it's another one of these offenses that isn't exactly working in sync with the individual players that they have, and isn't as good as it should be because of that. The Panthers is the same thing, but I don't think they have bigger institutional problems to fix in order to maximize it. Frankie Luvu is actually a really good linebacker.
Yeah.
He had last season was this sort of unexpected, impressive performance from him off, relatively low sample size. We had like a PFF grade of 85 or whatever. I was like, maybe that was just he was really good last year, but small sample size, who knows? He still looks really good.
Yeah, that was a great play by him. May have gotten away with a little tug upon review.
Also kept trying to start like arguments and fights in the game. Like he ended up getting
those are fun.
Getting Will Hernandez ejected because after tossing James Conner to the ground.
A little attitude for the Panthers. Oops, I just kicked the mic. Still working? Check. Zach Allen, sneaky good player for the Cardinals here. Zach Allen, former third-round pick out of Boston College. 3 straight years of sub-60 grades. Has his second really good game in 3 weeks. Kind of a hybrid interior defensive lineman / edge defender, playing really well against the run right now. Just wanted to highlight his play. Year 4 breakout alert on the defensive line for Zach Allen and the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, they're moving him around a lot. Like he's getting a lot of pressure, basically lined up as basically like a nose tackle, and making a mess of interior plays, or plays on the interior rather.
And of course, the Barbarian ends up with a good grade.
Barbarian, yes.
What was the big play that I said about him?
Yeah, like was it a pick or a fumble recovery late? Like he was returning a ball for a large, for a key play late in the game.
We joke about the Barbarian, but that's Dennis Gardeck. He's 6 feet 232 out of Sioux Falls. He's been here for a few years. He had that incredible small sample size of like 6 rushes in 2020 when he was awesome. But look, earning more playing time this year. Just always around the ball.
Big game
round, right in the middle of 4th down stops and everything.
Matt Ioannidis with a big game again. Yeah. My guy. Panthers are so bad that they're ruining all of my guys.
It was your guy team.
Yeah.
Or maybe your guys are ruining their team.
No, it's not. They're all being undermined.
Arizona moves to 2-2. So they got to play the Panthers. Just stay in the mix. Panthers fall to 1-3. I got nothing else on this game.
No.
Sorry. We got 2 more games. Denver Broncos and Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders win 32-23. I got this game wrong.
Yeah?
Yeah, I picked Denver. I thought this was the weirdest spread of the week. I'm like, no, Russ on the road.
We all picked Denver, yeah.
It was a weird game, though, right? Because, Russell Wilson overall played a better game than Derek Carr. This is one of Carr's worst games statistically, at least. But the run game was the difference. You have Melvin Gordon.
Well, particularly late.
With a fumble 6. And then Josh Jacobs was unstoppable for the Raiders.
Yeah. So, Denver's offense has been struggling pretty badly so far this season. The Russell Wilson thing, we talked that to death. But the defense has been really good. So, fourth quarter, Denver ties it up. There's 7 minutes left. And then Denver's defense just forgot how to defense. And the Raiders just cruised down the field, took 5 minutes off the clock, ran the ball at will and put up another touchdown. And it was it.
Yeah.
So it ends up looking pretty egregious, but it was actually a way closer game than it looked. Sorry, I didn't tie it. I've got within 2. But
so they got within 2.
Right.
And then the Raiders just ran it out.
Just need to hold, right?
Yeah.
We got it within 2. We need to hold on defense. Our defense is really good. And the Raiders just stomped their defense, particularly running the ball. They just marched the ball down the field at will, took 5 minutes off the clock, scored a touchdown. And well, that's the game. I mean, we're done now.
Yeah. Again, it's like if the first 3 weeks, Denver's offense was so disjointed. And this was like old school Russell Wilson in that he's hitting Jerry Jeudy on a slot fade. He's hitting the seam route to the tight end. A beautiful bomb to KJ Hamler in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
This was like the low volume passing attack that you saw from Seattle, right? It wasn't, hey, Russ, drop back 40, 45 times and hit the short stuff. This was flip the field with your arm. And he did it a bunch. But he still got sacked 3 times. He still had those negative plays. Melvin Gordon fumbles. Amik Robertson just returns it all. I mean, that was a really good return because it didn't look like he was going to return it for a touchdown. What was the final return on that? 50-some yards? 68 yards. A 68-yard fumble return, which, he found open space. And who was the lineman who flailed at the end? That was hilarious.
It was Garrett Bowles.
Was that Bowles?
It was spectacular. There's a play that happens every preseason, or that comes up every preseason, which looked a lot like that, where an Eagles defensive lineman, I think, makes some absurd, cartoon leap, on a play that's nowhere near him, just to sort of show, hey, coach, I'm trying. I'm giving it my all. I'm diving at a guy that's 7 yards away from me, Garrett Bowles did that at the end of this return where he was a good 5 yards behind the guy and just lays out, tries to dive for it.
I retweeted it with the I don't know who it was, but that didn't go viral as much as it should have.
No?
The guy saying, me reaching for the open button when someone wants to get on the elevator. When you're diving across the elevator to let them in, keep the door open. Yeah. It's pretty good. Anyway, that was a huge part of the difference in the game there, obviously.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say about Denver's offense, you finally get good Russell Wilson. You finally get the Seattle Russell Wilson that is going to create these huge chunk plays, but they didn't pair it with the run game, right? Javonte Williams, before he got hurt, unfortunately.
Might be done.
He might be done for the season. I mean, Russ was the leading he led the team in rushing yards with 29. Melvin Gordon essentially gets benched in his backup role for Mike Boone. Even when Javonte Williams goes down, it's still pretty much Mike Boone's game. He runs hard, catches a pass in there and everything. But the run game didn't complement Russell Wilson creating those big plays. And I know they scored 23 points. That was a lot for the Broncos. They had just won 2 games combined with 23 points over the last couple weeks. But then, like you said, the Broncos forgot how to defense.
Boone drops the 4th down. That was actually a really good play from Russell Wilson with under 2 minutes left. Try and answer 4th and 5. Wilson, escapes from the pocket, ends up throwing it deep down the middle to Mike Boone, who's done a good job to get open, and then stone-handed drop, play or drive dead, game over.
So the Broncos fall to 2-2.
Yep.
And the Raiders get their first win.
They did.
1-3. Josh Jacobs was fantastic in this game. For a guy that played the first in the Hall of Fame game, Josh Jacobs really come a long way here.
Well, he had to earn it, had to earn the playing time this year.
Remember, people were trying to look into why is Josh Jacobs playing in the Hall of Fame game?
Derek Carr hasn't really had a good game yet this season.
No.
That feels
last week was good.
It was all right.
Last week was good, but they didn't score points.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like this game that Russ had today, which was a lot of big time, a lot of in between. Well, a lot of big time throws for Carr last week was in between the numbers, and then they just couldn't put it in the end zone. And
nothing has hit the heights of where we expected it to, given what he's now surrounded by.
I mean, I thought he was going to be an MVP candidate. I thought Again, if you told me Mac Hollins had another couple plays in here, if you told me
another one
that was going to happen. But Josh Jacobs was the story here. Forced 8 missed tackles. You're right. The Devontae, and you had the 13 targets for Devontae Adams, 9 catches, 102 yards. He was good in this one. Great battle, by the way, between Devontae Adams and Patrick Surtain. Surtain could defense. He played well for the Broncos. Their run defense was just horrendous against Jacobs.
And in particular, on that final drive when it mattered the most. Like, Russell Wilson got you back into contention, got you within 2 points. All you got to do, you got 7 minutes left on the clock. All you got to do is get a stop at some point in the next 7 minutes, Yeah. And they let them march all the way down the field methodically, take 5 minutes off the clock, and score a touchdown. Literally the worst possible outcome for the defense on that drive. Again, if Denver's defense was supposed to be the thing, it's been carrying the team so far for the first 3 weeks. And then on that one drive, it let it down.
So there you go. Let me make sure. We got every other game covered? I think we did. Talked about that. This is well done.
Yeah.
All right, Sunday Night Football. Kansas City Chiefs 41, Tampa Bay Bucs 31. This was the Chiefs got up early. The Bucs fumble the opening kickoff. Rachaad White. And Rachaad White ended up being a huge part of the Bucs offense later, but he fumbles the opening kickoff. The Chiefs offense pretty much unstoppable. Other than a couple drives late, but pretty much unstoppable. Bucs defense did not have any answers for Patrick Mahomes and company. And Mahomes has one of the most, I've never seen a touchdown pass like that ever. Most ridiculous touchdown passes you've ever seen.
That was there's a lot of debate as to how much of what Mahomes does is freaky, unique, manipulating defenses to create space that he then takes advantage of, and how much of it is simply style points relative to other quarterbacks who just make the play, there's plays in there where Mahomes does Mahomes things and creates a play, and then there's Brady just stands there and fires a dart to Mike Evans. You're like, well, the outcome is the same,
right?
But we lose our minds more about the Mahomes thing because it's so unique and unusual. This was one of those plays, though, that isn't that. This was a play where Mahomes makes 3 things happen that most quarterbacks can't make happen in the one play. Now, you can look at it and say, hey, Devin White just fell face first in the turf the way
Mahomes made a miss.
Sure, but that's a play that Levante David probably makes that tackle. Devin White doesn't, because this is one of the reasons Devin White grades badly relative to everybody thinking he's a spectacular linebacker. But Mahomes makes one guy miss, then makes a second guy miss, and then when he could probably force his way into the end zone but take a hit in the process, he realizes that all of what he's just done is created space, and he can just quickly lob a pass to a wide-open Edwards-Helaire, right, in the end zone for a touchdown. Mahomes, the thing that makes him special to me is he has that thing that I think is the single greatest key to unlock to get great quarterback play, which is the ability to make split-second decisions with everything changing around you.
Yeah.
And it's a skill that is most obvious, I think, in soccer. And there are players that have it all the time. I think basketball is probably the same thing. But guys that always seem to have
point guards in basketball.
Guys that always seem to have more time than it actually exists. So one of the big trend in soccer in recent years has been this idea of pressing, and put players under pressure at all times, force mistakes, capitalize on the mistakes, win. There are players that you simply can't really pressure. You can rush them, you can get in their face, but they just turn away. They're always able to get space, and they're not ever actually put under pressure. And there's an innate ability that those guys have that makes them great because of that. Mahomes has that, but most of the players that have that in soccer tend not to be physically imposing. They have their great skill is that ability to just always make good decisions. And they tend to look like these sort of small guys that don't have incredible physical ability, don't have incredible pace, don't have all the physical gifts, but that's their super skill. So Mahomes has that in addition to having one of the best arms in the NFL, in addition to having more than enough athleticism to get out of tackles and to make guys look ridiculous. He has a high-end physical tool set and that skill. which makes him basically unstoppable when he does things like that.
Yeah, I mean, as you're talking through that, I'm thinking like Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
And Larry Bird.
Because I think Mahomes...
Dating myself, but... Because I think guys
Mahomes,
that had incredible, just see things differently.
Yeah, and I think he's the only quarterback in the NFL that attempts that pass. There are other quarterbacks in the NFL that could get to that point, but he's the only one, I think, that pulls up and flicks the ball to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think every other quarterback in the league at that point in the play is throwing themselves at the goal line,
Yeah, I mean, so we've seen quarterbacks scramble out, draw a defender, and then flip it.
Yeah.
Right? But Mahomes,
this wasn't
no, it wasn't that at all. I'm just saying we've seen that before, right? What we haven't seen is him getting out of the pocket, essentially saying, I know I have a guy to beat. Most quarterbacks throw it away. Some draw the guy and still flip it, but that play wasn't open. He still had a play open. He said he was going to run it. He explained this, right? When you talk about like adjusting on the fly, he had it up in his mind. He was going to run for the goal line.
So that's the thing.
And then as he's getting tackled, is just like, I see this, flip it, go. That's incredible.
His ability to realize mid-play that, this is actually different to what I thought it was. I was going to run it now, having made two guys miss, and the goal line's right there. But look, all this craziness has meant that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is now uncovered 3 yards ahead of me. Let's change my mind and flip it.
Yeah.
I don't think any other quarterback in the league is able to make that calculation on the fly and change his mind and flip the ball away. That ability to change what you had planned on the fly is what I'm talking about. And his ability to do that, I think, is unique.
So again, I think what makes the Chiefs so dangerous, and now apparently even without Tyreek Hill, they're going to be that dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Is you combine that with Andy Reid in the history of creating offense through the pass game. You combine that with they create space. The Bucs defense had zero answers for Travis Kelce, for any of the underneath passes that the Chiefs threw. Mahomes also threw some. He actually had some big time throws in there. He hadn't been making, seam routes, back shoulder into Juju, and he hadn't been making those throws. It had been a lot of the underneath stuff that was creating big plays. So when you combine all of that. Yeah, it's a dangerous Chiefs offense, obviously.
This was the first time this season where the Chiefs looked like Super Bowl contender Chiefs, from the previous few years. Like Tom Brady and the Bucs offense, they've had their issues this season. They've been dealing with injuries. They're still dealing with injuries. They had some players back. Obviously, Mike Evans was a huge part of this game. He's he may be one of the best maybe the best red zone target in the NFL. Mike Evans had a bunch of plays. Chris Godwin was battling through his deal, but they're still down men, whether it's receiving core or the offensive line, which was, still missing a couple of guys. But the Bucs offense actually did fine. Like when Brady took control, they were able to, they put up 31 points, So you look
with
at that and you say,
3 rushing yards.
Yeah, and so you look at that and you say their offense did a good job, certainly relative to what they've been doing the first 3 weeks. But what was looking like the best defense in the NFL just got wrecked by the Chiefs' offense.
I mean, if you're just to finish up with the Chiefs quickly here, Mahomes does throw a late interception. They were up 17. He forced it late. He's got some of those plays. Even like the final stat line for Mahomes actually doesn't even look that good. There's a few drops in there, 4 drops, I believe, but only 6.7 yards per attempt. 97 passer rating. Doesn't actually look that special, but the Chiefs ran the ball well. The Bucs did play soft coverages, and the Chiefs had answers this time, right? We talked about this last year, that the Bucs did play the 2 shell type of stuff, and the Bucs just kept running. The Chiefs just kept running. They were running that counter play quite a bit. They won up front, the offensive line. So the Chiefs showed, I think, that they had answers. As much as the takeaway is going to be Mahomes had one of the most ridiculous touchdown passes we've ever seen and all this stuff. The Bucs gave Chiefs earned it too. Bucs give the Chiefs the ball on the opening kickoff. So the Chiefs essentially just steal an extra possession.
Yeah.
Brady gets blindsided on a sack. He fumbles, may have hurt his shoulder. Chiefs get the ball in Bucs territory again. So that was part of the reason why the Chiefs offense didn't get stopped. Bucs didn't have any answers defensively. But if you're looking at it from a Bucs point of view, going back to why are teams 2-2, I think the Bucs are 2-2 because they played the Packers and the Chiefs as well, and their schedule is going to get easier. So, again, I think from a Chiefs perspective, like, man, they started 3-1 and they blew one against the Colts, but they've survived pretty well so far. Whereas from a Bucs perspective, Brady looked fantastic throwing the ball last night with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin back. I know Godwin came out, he went back in. Julio banged up again, but I think the Bucs offense is going to be okay.
Yeah, like we've been saying this for the first few weeks. It's been okay, and it's been dealing with injuries to the offensive line and the receivers. You know, once those guys get healthy or some combination of them gets healthy, the offense will be fine. And this game, it was fine. They put up 30 points. They looked okay. Okay, they couldn't run the ball, but who cares?
But they should be. I mean, the Bucs, the first 3 games of the season, I know all their receivers were hurt, but they were going, early down runs to nowhere. Over and over again. They're running 2 tight ends out there like they still have Gronk. Like, they don't have the personnel to run the ball like that.
No, but they didn't have the personnel to pass the ball.
They didn't either, right.
And that would have been, I think the game plans made sense with the context of trying to protect Tom Brady and make sure that he wasn't just going to get murdered every play.
But now go back and let Tom chuck it around, I think, because, he'll find like I said, Rashad White had 50 yards on 5 catches. They tried to add him to the passing attack. I think he's an upgrade over Fournette as a receiver. The question is going to be pass protection. The Bucs offense I thought they looked pretty good overall. But they had 0 answers for the Chiefs. The Chiefs were just unbelievable. Basically adjusting to what the Super Bowl game plan was, because the Super Bowl game plan was, don't allow these big plays. And the Chiefs had open receivers left and right. Mahomes was finding them, and then adding to that your spectacular touchdown. Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire both running really hard. And, Chiefs earned it, man.
And the Bucs, they did a lot in terms of trying to mix it up. Like, they had a bunch of plays where they played coverage. They sent the blitz because it wasn't working. Like, they were mixing it up, which is, I think, probably the correct strategy, to not do one or the other, but to try and time it up and just try and get it right every now and again in a key spot. But this was one of those games where the Chiefs, when they're at their best on offense, there is no answer.
You hear this from Chiefs fans a lot too. When they really have all the trickeration in a given week, we saw a speed option. We saw the play that they used to only run with Travis Kelce, because Kelce used to be a quarterback, where they'd be motioning and the tight end would just stop under center, take the snap and sneak it. They did it with Noah Gray for a touchdown yesterday. Like, the Chiefs treated this like, hey, we want to win this game. Like, we're gonna unload the playbook, and that's what makes Andy Reid's offenses so difficult to defend. Is you have Patrick Mahomes, right? It's like we always talk about, just drop back and chuck it, but like, you're running a speed option with him. It's just this different thing that the defense has to defend. You don't have to run a speed option with Patrick Mahomes, but it's going to steal 8 yards here and there, right? They had all of those plays in. They had the trick plays, and they had just your simple basic plays, and pretty much everything was working until the end.
Yeah. I mean, this was one of those, like, playing the Chiefs used to be like an Arena League game. They're going to score pretty much every drive. You need to either keep pace with them or figure out how to stop them. And at the very minimum, you can't be giving them free extra drives. And the Bucs fell at the first hurdle, like the kick return, the opening kick return. You immediately give the Chiefs an extra drive. It's like, well, okay, if it's going to be that kind of game, you're already in trouble.
Yeah, so the Bucs finished with 3 rushing yards on 6 carries. You got Rashad White, 3 carries, 6 yards. One of them was a 1-yard touchdown. Leonard Fournette, 3 carries for -3. And it started like that. Fournette goes for -3, and then the Bucs just said, forget it, we're passing. And then they passed like the next 27 plays or something, maybe even more. It was ridiculous. Brady had 53 dropbacks against 6 rushes. Maybe that's the way to play offense if you're the Bucs.
I mean, the Bucs, the average EPA per play for the Bucs was not dramatically different to Kansas City's on offense. So the no running thing, I don't think, is a particularly big problem in this game. Their best chance to keep pace was letting Brady throw the ball around and hoping that they could steal a possession somewhere. Their issue was that their defense simply couldn't stop Kansas City at any point.
One other thing, we've heard this before, or we've said this before. Devin White wins Defensive Player of the Month in September. And Devin White, when you're watching the broadcast, does do impressive things. Like if you're just watching the broadcast and you're like, who is 45? That guy's flying around, and I see him tackling, making tackles, and I see him, they get a pass breakup last night. He gets to the quarterback a lot. Had 2 sacks in week 1. But you don't always notice the misplays.
Yeah.
And if you do look at a lot of the worst plays the Bucs have, Devin White is at the center of them. That's all I'll say.
Particularly plays where he's running to the flat for whatever reason. There are a lot of plays where he's running laterally and then ends up being nowhere in the resolution of the play.
I mean, I was just talking, not name dropping here because it's not a name, but talking to a former NFL player who was talking about one of his former teammates who was a linebacker, and they'd be like, hey, everybody loved so-and-so because he's got a forced fumble and a pick and a sack or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but he missed 10 assignments. I mean, it really is. Linebacker is really this position where if you look at the stat sheet and you see 10 tackles, sack, pass breakup, whatever, it's like, wow, he had all the good stats. But you missed where those tackles were. You missed the missed assignments and what he gave up. And that's like the give and take with Devin White. He brings energy, he flies around, but a lot of the bad plays from the Bucs defense are kind of centered around him.
Yeah.
That's my explain the grade for this week. Bucs, Chiefs move to 3-1. Full command in the AFC West.
Full command.
AFC West a little less competitive than we thought.
Yeah, I mean the Raiders aren't good, even though they won. The Broncos might not be good, and they're 500. The Chargers, I think, are probably quite good, but they're very beat up right now. And then the Chiefs do look very good.
Yeah. So maybe the AFC West not as good as we thought.
But this is also kind of what we said is that, there's maybe 9 good teams in the AFC. It's not really possible for all 9 of those teams to end up with really imposing records and look really good.
And the Bucs move to 2-2. Again, their schedule the rest of the way per PFF Elo is the easiest. Because you have teams like the Seahawks and Steelers on the schedule that might play tough games, but the Bucs should be better than that. I think they'll be okay in the end, but they fall to 2-2, tied for first. We had a first place NFC South showdown next week, Bucs and Falcons. Battle for first.
There you go.
All right, is that it?
Yeah,
it's like 8 minutes early this week. Very efficient.
8 minutes earlier than 2.5 hours.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in. That's week 4 in the books. Monday Night Football tonight. 49ers and Rams. Maybe we'll talk about that on Wednesday. Or on the PFF NFL Daily. Be sure to subscribe to that as well. And don't forget to get the PFF app. Go get it right now. App Store. PFF app. All your fantasy and betting stuff, plus all Sam's writing.
Yeah.
Find Sam's stuff. Like it. Share it. Share it out. Grab the PFF app right now in your App Store.
Don't forget to go to, URL/show code.
Yeah. You got to do that. Shout out to show code. Did I get everything today? Shout out to Viore.
Yeah.
Joining the show here for your shirt, No House Advantage, Western and Southern. Appreciate all of our sponsors. All right, that's it. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again on Wednesday.